still, I guess, in the early stages. And my role is to make sure that everything's fine on the AV and to do the last final bits of overcome the last teething problems. Yeah, I'm Richard Maccabee, Director here, ULCC, and just wanted to take the opportunity to welcome you here again, and indeed those for whom this is the first time, if there are any here. This user group and indeed the equivalent for higher education are very important to us, and we've taken some time, I confess, to put these in place, with all sorts of other changes that have gone on. Many of my colleagues here have come in the time that I've been here now, coming up for 3 years, and we've substantially changed. Yes, I think we're working. Yeah, any more teeth? How many teething problems do we have scheduled? Are we going to keep talking till we have a third teeth? No, shut up. So yeah, we've substantially changed things, and this, and as I say, is not the final piece in the jigsaw by any means. We've got lots going on, as I'm sure you all have. But the feedback from yourselves, discussion with yourselves, consultation, your guidance is very important and is something that we value very much. So I think AV is now kind of working. There's a microphone there that I guess will work for the general conversation, so we don't need to pass this around. Hand over to you, and unfortunately I have to go.
Can you just introduce yourself? Because I think there's new group members this time, and nice to know who's representing the college. So do you want to start from that end?
They can with the software services at ULCC.
Jo Burbidge, e-learning project manager at the SOCO.
Patricia Forrest, Head of E-Learning, Innovation and Learning Centres at the SOCO.
Jane Ball, e-learning librarian, Richmond upon Thames College.
Well, Kane, LRC and e-learning manager, ULCC College.
Windsor Laborie, IT and e-learning manager at CalAT in Croydon.
Simon Bigg, Head of Learning Resources and e-learning development at City Lit.
Sarah Gascoigne, e-learning leader at Greenwich Community College.
Leading the Canberra VLE manager at Greenwich Community College.
I'm Richard Ward, I work at Hamlet's College. I'm the e-learning and learning technologies coordinator.
I'm Nancy Cheeseman. I'm a librarian and VLE manager at a school, Pumpton School in Hertfordshire, but we have 2,000 students and we have in excess of 300 sixth formers. So I'm here to really listen how Moodle is being used in further education for their benefit.
Ellen Mussner, e-learning coordinator at Abingdon Whitney College.
Ian Stapleton, technology enhanced learning manager at the College of West Anglia in Norfolk.
Frank Steiner, I'm multi-manager at the ULCC.
Hi, I'm Emily, the service support and operation manager at the services.
Jerry Crittenden, project manager for ULCC.
I've introduced myself. Okay.
So usually we've got the same kind of format I've had last time. ULCC usually do a presentation about any updates. Then we have some feedback from us as to how the service is going. There's been tremendous, I think, improvement since last year. I think we've all went, through the same process of when we upgraded to the latest Moodle. It was a bit of an upheaval for all of us. And I think they have invested in sorted out their customer services and the system. So from my perspective, I've started to see quite a lot of progress. But obviously we want to make sure that everybody else that is being serviced by ULCC in the sector gets the same good quality service, and that's why we're here. Okay, so shall we listen to you all?
Yeah, please. Should move up so I can manage the slides. As I said, introduce myself. I'm Jacob Crittenden and I'm the project manager here at ULCC for a number of projects, but the one specifically of interest to you guys is the Service Management Improvement Programme. The background to that is that over the last 18 months we have been looking at introducing improvements to our service management capabilities, which you may have picked up on here at ULCC, predominantly based around the ITIL, IT infrastructure, kind of best practice framework for IT service management, something that we are currently on the road to introducing. We've done a degree of that around incident management, problem management, etc., and we're just moving forward with introducing some new some further aspects of the ITIL framework in parallel with implementation of some supporting tool sets here at ULCC. So that program is likely to run for several years and incorporate a number of projects, some more internally focused, some that external users like yourselves, customers, will obviously direct benefit from. I've been invited on today just to give you a bit of background on the customer portal development. Back in February last year, myself and Frank held a requirements gathering session, or a number of requirements gathering sessions with both FE, Moodle users, and HE, and a number of other customers to various other infrastructure services that we offer at ULCC. We took a lot of those requirements and put them together to basically to inform how you might put together a service management portal for basically ULCC's external customer base. So towards the back end of last year, sort of June onward, we started putting together an outline beta of what a portal might look like in a simplified sense, and that went live with that earlier this year. The present release is basically a very cut down, lightweight tool for the login of incidents and requests, so that you guys can log anything that might relate to your services and track progress against those requests or those incidents. We've taken a view that where we are with the project is that we need to now look at introducing a more consistent approach to the portal, bringing it in line with the ULCC website, bringing across some content from that website, but radically improving the usability and accessibility of the site. This is where we are now. We're working on that at present, with an expected to go live with a re-release or a refreshed release of the portal early this summer. This is an image of what that might look like. So quite different from what we currently have, if any of you guys are presently using that at the moment to track and log and track the status of any tickets with us. You'll see that there's a few more panels called New Section in the image there. This is because we are looking at introducing new functionality into the portal, and in parallel to the redesign of the actual portal itself, we're looking at some underlying process changes and kind of mini projects in themselves to introduce future kind of features to the portal around service level reporting, for one, introducing sort of monthly reports on our performance against the service level agreements we have with yourselves, introducing capability around service alerts, so anything that might be happening at ULCC that might have an impact on your service, or news feeds, making you aware of things coming up in the future, such as perhaps the upgrades or releases of future Moodle code, and the service catalogue, making some space on the portal there to make some links back to service descriptions as to what your services include, points of contact, things you can request against the service, additional upgrades, changes, etc. Dave will touch on this in his presentation later on. This is all happening in parallel, and we're expecting this to kind of dovetail into the portal probably early autumn. That's really it. Just wanted to any questions really regarding that? Yes.
Any of
They
you
are.
using it? And you're not
We looked at it, but we haven't used it since we looked at it.
Is it, we're talking about service now?
Yes.
So
Yep.
presumably, if you log in your jobs through the telephone, there will still be appearing in the portal.
They will be,
Yeah.
they will.
Yeah, I do remember at the beginning going in and having a quick look, and I think I got confused.
Yep.
And decided it was easier to talk to Emily.
We're looking for sense. We tend to revert back to rather than get.
That's very much why we're running the refresh, basically making it much more accessible, much more visually kind of easy to navigate.
You're planning to stay with ServiceNow, is that the roadmap to stay with
Certainly,
ServiceNow?
definitely, yeah. The ServiceNow platform is a very comprehensive IT service management platform that spans a whole raft of areas we're interested in, this being one of them. So yeah, everything around the ITIL framework is likely to be sitting on the ServiceNow platform.
Is it due to work on iPad?
Yes.
I don't know exactly.
That's in, I should have mentioned that then, that's actually incorporated in the next release that will be coming out in early summer. We took some feedback that ideally it should be made available via tablets particularly, less so through mobile, but tablets, definitely people keen on being able to access details as to where their tickets are on the move. So.
Are you consulting anyone in the sector for the functionality, or you?
We have done previously, and we're delivering against that. There's a roadmap in place which is broadly aligned to what we discussed at those workshops back last year. We are incorporating a feedback link into the portal, and we're keen to take feedback on the portal. As we get a bit further along, following this this second release, I suspect we'll be doing another consultation exercise to get a view on what we should include for the next release, probably in autumn.
I mean, I'd be more than happy to make that an item on the next agenda.
Yeah, I think
just
so.
have a 10 or 15 minutes once we launch the sort of new look and feel. Hopefully more people get to use it, and then better to the forums, and I think to hear everybody's views and take things forward.
Can you send us the link?
Certainly.
And when is the upgrade? When are you expecting it?
I'm due to hear back from the team that are working on the actual project Tuesday following the bank holiday. Expect to have a outline schedule for delivery thereafter, but we are aiming for June at some point. Yep.
This might be a bit out of date because I was mainly using it over the summer holidays last year, but can you make sure there's a bit more sort of on-screen help? Because it wasn't at all clear then whether something had actually sort of registered. There were kind of save and update buttons and things. It's nice to click them all and hope something would...
We've taken that on board actually. We're aware of it ourselves. We're incorporating it in some kind of built-in help on that. We're actually trying to simplify it in the sense so that there shouldn't be too much need for it, so it's more intuitive. But we'll certainly take that away. Yep.
Have links to email, or is it intended to be all kind of live on the portal?
Sorry?
Are you intending to sort of link it with emails, like some help desk send you a confirmation email, or is it all just going to be?
It's already.
It's already confirmation emails coming from the system.
Yeah.
It's on my kind of mental roadmap to look at the content of those emails to make sure they're simple, and ideally to reduce the content of them and to draw people back to the portal. So there's a one-stop shop really for all the information regarding ticket.
I mean, just to recap for anyone, you alluded to it earlier briefly. If you contact the service desk, either by phone, email, or through the portal, it all goes into ServiceNow. So in a way, you have 3 different channels of getting in there. What the portal gives you, if you were to log in as a local customer, for example, gives you all the tickets that have been logged. So you get a quick overview rather than you having some emails, and you having some emails, and a third party having different emails. So you get this snapshot of, oh, we've logged 10 tickets as an institution. Where are we with this?
I mean, just to add to that, the quickest way of drawing attention to a ticket is to log it through the portal, because effectively it just misses out several elements of the process that will end up introducing it to ServiceNow in any event. So the fastest way is to put it through the portal. If it's an urgent issue, if it's a priority issue whereby you've sites down or something significant has happened, then I fully suggest you make a phone call, contact the service directly, or at least to highlight the fact that you've logged that ticket through the portal.
I just want to say that I have been using the portal, and what I value is getting an email back to not having to keep checking with the portal to make sure things have happened. So I would hope that that doesn't disappear.
No, we're not expecting to take it back.
Okay.
We'll certainly make it easier for you to follow and track the history of the progress of those 2 years.
Thank you.
So it gives you feedback as to your query might take, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, and then you can follow it up with deadlines.
I would like the results, certainly like that, to actually have more indication of where it's been classified, what the years later
I think making that more prominent and easier to interpret on the ServiceNow portal is one thing, including it more in the emails, but touching back on the point I made about ServiceNow reporting is producing reports in a consistent fashion that are made available to you according to the frequency described in the ServiceNow agreements, introducing the idea of key performance indicators by which you can measure that, which is basically going to be aligned to the criteria set out in ServiceNow contracts, but making that available for you guys to see by portal is something we're looking to introduce in the near future.
Yeah, because most people will not refer to the service level. You just think, I just need to know when that is going to be a month.
Just one of my thing on that, just looking through a ticket that I've worked with recently, and the internal sort of, you use ServiceNow throughout ULCC, and so internally there will be certain things we refer to the desk, and it's an internal request that then goes, and you're waiting.
Yep.
And it would be good to sort of see a real clarity in terms of when you're waiting for something to happen, we've got the information about the fact that you're waiting and how long that's going to. So there's almost an internal SLA as well that would be useful to be represented through that, so we understand that.
Any other feedback, questions?
I expect to give you a bit more of an update on that via our newsletter or via email from Frank's team in the future.
Thank you.
Super. Thanks very much.
Hello. Right, if you don't already know me, I'm hoping everybody does know me or has spoken to me, but obviously I'm Emily. Slightly different job title, but same role, so same in terms of the support desk. I'm just going to talk to you just briefly about the upgrades, but I'm expecting a bit more of a Q&A back from you about some feedback over last year in terms of what we're doing, where we can, what we can do to make it better. Because most of this has already been communicated in the last email. I've spoken to Ellen already, and she didn't receive that email. It's similar title to Moodle Updates, so it got deleted unfortunately. So did everybody get the upgrades email from us? Yeah, lovely. So some of this will be repeated. So I wanted to basically go through a couple of things to highlight some of this information that I provided in the email and also what's available on the demo site. Basically, we're doing the upgrade process very much similar to last year in terms of offering a upgrade not in situ, so your current site sits in a read-only state while we upgrade a version of your site on a new infrastructure and then we switch it over. I got personal feedback from most of the customers that they preferred it that way because there was less downtime involved. It's much more seamless for their end users, especially when nowadays Moodle's a critical service for your students and your staff. And having that downtime is kind of basically, it's a day's downtime is not, it's not well received by your end users. So we've kept that, although we could still run upgrades in situ, we felt that we wanted to provide that service again. So we're completely modelling the same process as last year. The only real difference is that we are actually working from a version of Moodle that isn't a vanilla Moodle. Last year we upgraded using a vanilla version of Moodle 2.4 and then we added third-party contributed plugins back in separately as a separate process. This year we're actually modelling our release to a master Git build that includes all the current plugins that we support for services, ULCC developments. So any developments we've provided that are compatible with other services, so they're not, you know, unique custom developments, but they are useful tools that we've built for other customers. We're sharing those, and some proprietary plugins. So in a sense, when we upgrade you, you're going to get a lot more third-party tools to use and features included. What we have done is added that list of plugins on the demo site, which I'll bring up on the demo site recently, and also whether or not certain plugins that we may have supported beforehand that have currently failed testing, or we're waiting for a later release. So things like Blackboard Collaborate, which I'm not sure in this room users are using, and Campus Pack and things like that, we're still waiting for versions for 2.6. The only plugin which I know some people will be affected by at the moment that we currently can't put in the Git build is the Open University blogs, OU blogs. They haven't made it available for 2.6. It failed our testing at this point, but we are expecting that if people are upgrading in the next month and a half, around that time, I would expect by that point Open University would have provided. They're currently due to release their 2.6 version in June or July, I think, when they upgrade. So they tend to model their plugins to that date. So we will add it back in, but if you are upgrading early, it's not going to be available until the Open University. Yes, yes, yes. As soon as it becomes available and it passes our testing, yes, it will be added back in. Yeah, that's the only one at the moment that would be affects a lot of our customers. It won't work. Unfortunately, you'd have to look at using either the standard tool, migrating back to the standard tool, or looking at other tools available. There are a couple of things that need to be considered. If you've had I don't know how much people have had a chance to look at 2.6. There's a couple of highlights. I don't know if you can really see it very well on here, but essentially the main thing for your end users that they're going to see that is different from 2.4 to 2.6 is the HTML editor. They are using a new HTML editor. I'm not that keen personally, but it is supposedly more accessible. It does have the greater ability to add more filters and third party to that HTML editor, so that's where Moodle's moving to, but it will look different. 2.6, yes.
5.
I think this came in 2.6. It wasn't involved in 2.5. It's a new thing for 2.6.
Can you just say a little bit more about how the HTML editor is actually different?
It's different in the look and feel. So it's got the same tools, but the icon set is completely different. So for an end user, they probably need to just adjust themselves to using it. It will look different.
So you no longer click on HTML editor. And
no, you would. It's just the editor screen the look and feel is completely different. The same end user, you would still click on something and see it,
yeah,
but it will look different. So I've had feedback already that certain customers, new customers that are using it, they're like, oh, this is a bit different. So so it has thrown a few people. So I would suggest updating your training documentation to cover that. We have made available the demo site. These slides are a little bit old, but it's available now. Has everybody had a chance to look at it yet? No? Oh, well, I might.
Sorry, a question on the plugins, because I've just gone on to the demo site. You've got attendance block and attendance module.
Yep.
So we have an attendance block. It's not our block that's not going to work. It's not our block that's not going to work.
No, it's a third party.
Oh, right, okay. And the other one was the course menu.
The course menu has been dropped. Yeah.
Sorry.
The course menu. There's a course menu block.
Yes.
Yep. That has been dropped. It doesn't work with 2.6. It was introduced to bring back the same kind of navigation from 1.9. Navigation has changed substantially. Moodle's changed their code base. It doesn't work for 2.6. You might have
it's the only way that people can get to their courses from my home. If they've got more than
I think you might have something different. I mean, if you've got individual questions, this is a good opportunity to check with me if you feel that you're going to be affected. But certainly the old course menu block, which came, I think we've been supporting it since 1.9, it has now been dropped.
No, two separate things.
I
I'm
don't
thinking
know.
the course menu on an individual course.
No.
That's still there.
I think if you want to show me, we can have a look and I'll go through. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
So what will happen in those instances where colleges have got very different, trying to standardise things?
Yes.
Would you then work with those specific colleges?
The course menu is just a different way of navigating through the site. Navigation methods in Moodle still exist, and so there is an element of maybe if you. I don't think it's widely used. I think there's only a few customers that I know that use the course menu.
Would they have to redesign the whole course structure, or what are the implications?
The implications are in the course. Essentially, what it does is it brings you gives you
topics.
Yes.
Yeah. On the left-hand side of the nice little block. We tended to use it for what we call our supporting courses, where you navigate where it makes sense if you're trying to replicate a website. It won't have too much impact in a traditional course, per se, because you're kind of used to working with the topics as they are, and you've got the collapse view, various other options. But we've standardised it and used it, and it's proved to be really popular.
Okay.
So it's
Well, I can feed that back, but certainly Moodle has dropped support of that, and there isn't a version available for 2.6. So
yeah, we just use it's a courses block we use.
Courses block that's fine.
Yeah, that's the one on the homepage.
Yeah.
Which is separate and not being blocked.
No,
that's fine.
We're
That's
using the course menu extensively throughout.
That's fine. No, that's fine. These are the type of things that obviously we're looking at from a functionality point of view, but obviously these are the things that you have to look at in terms of your users. So I would suggest going and having a look at the demo site extensively as much as possible. It's there for you to use because it has everything that we're currently supporting, and it's an opportunity for you to go, well, this isn't there, that's this may be an issue. It's always difficult when you're going from another version to another version in terms of keeping the same look and feel. Unfortunately, we're working with Moodle. It's a fantastic application, but they do change functionality and features on a regular basis. So, we would obviously love to be able to keep things for their entirety, but sometimes certain functions do get dropped, they get changed. The only other thing which, in terms of from 2.4 to 2.6, that what you're going to see is actually it's much more usable. It's much more usable to the end user. I haven't got a screenshot in here, but I'm quite happy to go through the demo site in a second. In terms of the edit buttons that you see on a course page, they've rationalised it. You get that long list of basically edit icons. Now it just says edit, and it will pop up, and it will basically give you those edit options there, which is much better. It's much cleaner for a tutor without having all of that running across the page. They're really the main only difference, and then 2.6 builds in a lot more features. You've got the features from 2.5 in terms of the badges, and then various other usability. Now, the big thing for us, and it always is a big thing for us, is that we're going up to a new version and it performs better. And our testing that we've done over the last 2 months has indicated that from 2.4 to 2.5, there's at least across the board in terms of page load times, they are reduced, and it's less resource hungry. So in terms of CPU and memory, it's not utilising those resources as much. Jackie actually forwarded me an email from Open University blog on Friday, and they're currently doing their testing against 2.6 as a build, and they've confirmed that they've seen the same results that we have in our testing. So in terms of where we're going, we're going to get a much better performing system as we're going along. So we're not going to see any regression in terms of performance as we go to the new version. We are now in an upgrade schedule. Today is the first day. We haven't actually got an upgrade running today, but we do have upgrades running from tomorrow right in through to early August. If you haven't booked your slot already, I would obviously email our upgrades address and speak to Kate or myself and get something booked in. Obviously, we run on a first come, first basis, but we do have on certain days we can run more than one upgrade.
Have you considered your kind of schedule as it fills up available to the users so we can plan. Because obviously, what happens within the college is we see the window open up.
Okay.
And there are a number of things to consider. And in the meantime, you're going to be filling up. It might be that I go off and have my debate and identify weeks.
Yeah.
Come back to you and say it's full. So if we can see that, all we need really is a calendar.
Yeah, I mean, internally, we actually, because we're working across teams, we do actually, use a Google Calendar, and we share that calendar. I'll probably speak to Frank and see if there's something we can do, because we have no issue about making that available. Who's booked in? I mean,
it's just
that it's booked. Yeah, which probably. I'm trying to think.
See those.
Yeah.
Certainly give you a suggestion on dates that can't be free.
I could probably get actually Kate.
Just
just a report. I'm trying to get Kate to email on a monthly basis to say these are still the available slots.
You can share it without showing details. Almost like busy, available.
We'll see what we can do, because I think that would be useful.
No, I think bi-weekly maybe the minimum.
Yeah,
maybe weekly.
Weekly, I think, at least, because you can have the conversation, and by the time you fed back in, the slot's gone. So.
Well, I think if we can make the calendar itself just to show busy, busy and available.
Well, we'll definitely take that away and see what we can do. I'm more than happy to make that available. So we'll take that back and see what we can do.
A couple of questions. Who is on 2.4?
Yeah.
Most of, and the rest, are you on 2?
2.
So is it going to be a big jump from that to?
It will be a big jump in terms of the end user experience. Yes.
Staff development.
Staff development. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly from 2.2 to 2.4, there is a big change.
Okay. And are you planning to upgrade to 2.6? All of you? Okay. So what? Yeah. Would you still have clients that will be on 2.4 and remain there for a few years?
Yes. We won't force people into obviously upgrading. Ideally, I would like everybody to upgrade in the year, keep in the same window that we're offering our upgrades. But common sense, and honestly, certain institutions aren't in a position. They don't want to have too much change for their end users. So we're quite happy to support at least, I think, back a year. So we would expect that anybody that stays on 2.4 now in this coming year we would push them to upgrade next year to our next release. So institutions that are on 2.2 and 2.0, if anybody is still left, we would be actively forcing, not forcing, but basically saying we really need to move you to the latest version, not only for security updates, but also for the new features.
And do you know the implications of moving to 2.6 in terms of staff development? And are you aware of it?
Yeah. Very aware, yes.
And do you, and do you support those organisations in terms of, I don't know, maybe, or do we as a group that have already gone through that can share some of we've experienced? I mean, what are the key issues of staff development? Or?
I think with any change, it's always staff development and communication, with the institution.
Systems talking to new, upgrading of all the data.
When you're booked, and in fact, let me get the demo set up just for information.
What I'm trying to find out is, would those organisations have to prepare things differently to send to you, or would you take care of that bit, and the only bit they have to worry about is staff development?
What I was just about to cover was basically we'll run the upgrades, we'll provide you the site, and we'll also move over any accounts, so any access. What we do need you to do, which is the only other thing, is to open up your firewalls to allow connections from this different host that it's sitting on. And that was one of the things that came up last year in terms of improving that practice.
Yeah.
And what we found was, because we were moving from, at the very end, we were moving from different operating systems. So there were different ways of accessing if you had SFTP or if you had shell access. That in its sense will not be the same this year, because we're actually not changing the underlying OS, we're just upgrading the lab stack, which basically is the PHP, MySQL. we, and in fact on the demo site, that was one of the things that is always very difficult. We can run the upgrade in its, as a self-contained hub, but in terms of external systems, in terms of access, we can only provide guidance about checking once we've opened up the file, you've opened up the firewalls to you to check that you can push files to us, or you can access various drives. We were doing a lot of mopping up last year because people were on shared servers, they were on different infrastructure, and we've written a new script. There's actually a guide on here about, let me just get that.
And because of that, would you need those organisations to contact you as soon as possible? Because
We contact you as soon as the upgrade is booked in, and 2 weeks before the upgrade, we contact you with any new firewall, so new IP ranges that you need to open up. That's essentially all we would expect you to do.
So if a week prior.
2 weeks.
2 weeks prior.
2 weeks prior.
And from what you were saying, it seems like all the NES FTP users that are currently set up, the permissions for those will transfer across.
Yes,
all
yes
the
they will.
systems. The same for database.
Any questions?
Is there any chance of getting access to a demo version that actually has our theme applied to prepare training materials and this sort of thing?
Currently that isn't offered in our standard service. If you wanted to have earlier visibility of an upgraded version of your site, then you need to come to talk to us separately about having that as a request. Unfortunately, all we can do really is offer you a demo site for you to have access to see the new features. We did in the past when we did 1.9 to 2 upgrades, because that was such a massive change, and in fact you did need to have early visibility of an upgraded version of your site. But essentially, no, we don't offer that.
We have ourselves just simply downloaded a version of 2.6 for people to play around with. So presumably you could put your own theme on a mini version to show people what it looks like.
Can you give some instructions how to do that?
We're setting up a local instance of Moodle internally.
Applying our own thing to different.
If you have a local, applying an own thing, you would need to probably talk to your internal team about having a server or setting it up on your desktop. Certainly your internal IT department should be able to go through the instructions from Moodle.org to install a local instance. And in fact, the guidelines from Moodle are pretty comprehensive in terms of installing third-party contributed plugins. I don't know how many of you have local instances of Moodle running on your desktops, but it would be something probably I would say if you have a good internal IT team to contact them to see whether or not they can provide you that. It's very different. It depends on the environment that you're running on. I could provide you guidance on how we work in terms of a LAMP environment, but that would be very different if you're running on Windows in terms of setting it up.
I'm not sure.
Sorry, could you sell 2.6 to me? We're on 2.4, and now I'm afraid I'm not really sure why we need to go up to 2.6. I thought we had to go up to 2.6, and I'm not really thinking that it's worth doing at the moment.
It gives you one performance. I think in essence that is the major improvement. You have new features such as badges that come across. I know that's very keen. I know Joe's been looking at that, and the SOPA has been running with that locally for the last year. That was introduced in 2.5. It's much more usable. It has obviously you'll get a huge subset of tools and features to use in 2.6. That you don't currently have, such as
you have to balance upsetting people and the features, because we hardly get people to use some of the wonderful features that have been there for a long time. So do I want to throw people into, it doesn't look like it's going to upset anybody because it's not a huge visual difference.
It's not. I only highlighted the HTML editor because that's really the only major change that your end user is going to get to see. I would always recommend, if you have the capacity, to upgrade to our latest version, because it's supported, it's up to date, it has a wider subset of tools that you're available to, and it aligns you with the Moodle community.
Supported, because obviously
it's supported by Moodle. Yeah, we're supporting 2.4. But also we're supporting 2.6. Anything earlier than that, we would actually say it was recommended to move to that. Moodle will support releases for about a year and a half, and then security patches, bug fixes, they tend not to work on those earlier versions. Now, in fact, I came back from Moodle Moot, and 2.7 is going to be a long release cycle. They're going to actually support that for 3 years, which they haven't done since 1.9, because a lot of the community feedback was actually that, you know, they can't keep upgrading these versions, you know, every year, and actually they'd like to have a release that is supported by Moodle that's longer than a year. And actually Moodle have taken that on board and actually said, okay, the next release version, 2.7, we're going to actually support for 3 years. So essentially people could then statically, and I think we would obviously, if people don't want to go through a cycle of upgrading every year, because any change, you know, it does impact an organisation. But certainly operationally here, we offer yearly upgrades. We're working towards having a much more visible upgrade schedule, and Dave will talk about that in terms of the Bloom service, of being able to roll out releases, hot fixes, using Git managed doc routes, so that we're actually regularly updating your services and getting the hot fixes that Moodle provide, which actually makes it a much more flexible service for you guys and less disruptions to your end users. I can never wholly say you must upgrade. You know, we're not forcing people to upgrading, but I would say that 2.4 and 2.6 will offer you a better service than 2.4 as an application.
Whilst we're talking about sort of timings and things, last year we took the option of upgrading during Easter. Now, in the FE calendar, that made a lot of sense. It was mainly because of the big change between 2.2 and 2.4, particularly around assessment. We were using, driving the use of assessment a lot. It had, you can imagine that Easter is a sort of time when final assessments are beginning. It caused quite a lot of disruption, but what it did do for us, it gave our staff the lead in, and it's given us a much better experience this year than it would have done if they'd come back cold at the start of an academic year with a whole new set of tools and new things to get their heads around. We would have quite liked to have gone down that route again this year. And I was feeling up to the run up to Easter, that's going to be the best option. How do others feel around the table in terms of best times to upgrade? And that sort of situation, if we upgrade during the summer, everything having to happen cold from the start of the year.
I've always gone with the philosophy, do it at the end of the year, ready for September. And I've decided it's probably not right. This year I'm trying to do exactly what you said. We're booked to go during half term. Because to me, it's not, because we always get to the end of the year and you've got teachers desperate to get students finishing things off. So even though you say, right, we're going to close it down and such, I need my students to be able to submit for another week.
Also, something one notices is that the summer in FE is not becoming the summer anymore. There's getting many courses that now run over, and the actual downtime that you used to expect during the summer just isn't there.
And also, I think it gives you the opportunity that last half term can be spent on staff development, so that you're preparing staff for what it will be like when they're setting up. Because staff aren't setting up for next year. They're not doing too much changing on this year's courses as they get to the end of the year.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm glad you said what you said, because it makes me feel a bit more reassured.
I mean,
maybe we're making the right decision.
Certainly from ULCC, where we're looking at actually providing you with a stable application platform. Last year we went with an incremental release, 2.4.1. We went for the first incremental release cycle. And actually we suffered because there were quite a few bugs, there were things that we had to wait to then fix. What we've done this year is actually we've waited to 2.6.2, and actually that probably would be what we would adopt going forward, because of the fact that, you know, the early incremental releases of any version from Moodle, you do run the risk of carrying through bugs that could affect the day-to-day operation, and that's where it's finding a balance. You know, we're trying to find a balance, because we want to obviously provide you with the best service possible and have something that is stable and performing and doesn't impact that people then go and encounter things that stop them from using it. because that can be as detrimental as anything.
I suppose it depends how big, I mean, I wouldn't suggest that you do that halfway through the year, that upgrade for people that are in 2.4, because people, you just got, people will be so angry that, they're used to something, they want the whole year to, finish off. And then there's also an expectancy within FE that, upgrades happen in the summer and you come back to something new. So from 2.4 to 6, there isn't that great.
It's mainly new features. It's mainly new features such as badges.
So it's not bad. But
we're hoping students won't notice the difference.
I wouldn't expect that students.
The other factor to consider, the reason we took the pain of it last year, even though it was that move from 2 to 4, was that it's very difficult to actually identify issues and bugs when you haven't got users live within the system. So during again summer, what we found was we could go into courses, we could test things, but a lot of the issues we wouldn't have actually found, we were able to relay back and push for hot fixes and get certain
how many
sorted.
staff do you have to help you through that process of training?
It's changed. Last year I only had one person who was dedicated to supporting Moodle. So it was a tough year last year, but we took that Easter upgrade and we feel we've taken a big step forward because we did that. So what you were saying, what I'm picking up is that in the Moodle development cycle, it's likely that we're always going to miss the Easter option.
Well, actually, it depends on where we're going with the Bloom service in terms of having a Git managed doc root that has all the developments. The problem is that the more developments that you build in, so third-party contributed plugins, it's not all, where we control them, we can make sure that they're available for that period of time. But we have to, again, it's this fine line of balancing, making sure that you have more features, you get to have the benefit of the community, of having developments that we've gone across the board, and having all of those subset of tools, and having a performing system. And obviously, it's not advisable to go for the first incremental release of any version, because there are always bugs that get found out. I think because we're working with an open source application, they have a huge development community across the world, but there are still things that they're new features, or they're changing functions, and it does tend to be that first incremental does carry reasonable amount of bugs that can, especially when it's a service. You are providing a service to your end users, and what you don't want them is to come across things that stop them from doing their day-to-day operations, and that's why we've tried to delay it a little bit with having
always
events.
the case, we absolutely recognise the balance, and it's always the case that you're looking for the next release. I mean, the one feature that I'm really hoping for is the reset. Which is the global reset management of my homes pages, which would be a real thing, real asset, isn't it? We're trying to do.
We can actually do that at the database if you require, but yes, it would be lovely to have it through the front end.
Chasing the features that you want. So I think anything that allows us to make more intelligent decisions about that shows us what options, what we're going to lose, what we're going to gain, I think will be helpful. Yeah. I certainly can see that.
Yeah. I mean, certainly on the demo site, I really would recommend again that all the information that we're putting up is going on that site. It will be updated regularly. We are assessing plugins all the time. We're updating information on there. It does give you a step-by-step guide in terms of what's expected in terms of read-only, similar to last year, what actions people can have, about SSH access, about SFTP, and about the process that we're doing this year. So if you have any problems with accessing that or going through that, then do email me or Moodle Upgrades, and also you can ask questions of us. We're never going to be able to provide all information, but we are here as a source of information as well.
Have a look at the plugins.
Could you talk us through the implications of the assignments? Because I want to get ours upgraded before the end of the term, in good time to do some training. But our most active users are the vocational courses, and they won't have had their final assignments. I read something about you can decide whether to keep the old version or go to the new one.
Are you going from 2.4 to 2.6? There's 2.2, yes. You can get from 2.2 to 2.4. Basically, they've built in a new assign module. So it's a new assignment module that basically puts all of the like single file upload, multiple file upload, offline in one assignment module. What that means is that after the upgrade, you can then upgrade that old assignment, which was the old assignment module, to that new assign module. It's recommended, when we did upgrades last year from 2.2 to 2.4, after the upgrade, we upgraded the assignments to the new version and turned off the old 2.2, so that basically everybody was using the new function. If you're not comfortable with that, you can delay that. You know, basically we can upgrade it, and we won't upgrade the we won't basically upgrade those assignments to the new assign module. It's still in Moodle, you can use it. If you're worried about the change in terms of if they've got assessments, you can say, right, we run with that until the summer, end of the year, and then you choose a date, you know, you contact us and say, yeah, we want to move everybody to the new assign module, and we do that via the front end, via the GUI. It's just it depends how many assignments you have, but normally it's a couple of hours, and it's done in the background by Moodle. Yeah.
To upgrade at one stage and then get all the assignments in and then do the
Yeah, if you don't want to disrupt in terms of your end users, in terms of a slightly different look and feel, yes, you can delay that. Yeah.
Interesting. Is there a mapping? Have you got a tool that maps things that says if you're on 2.2, these are the major impact, the major changes?
Yeah, we did do that last year when we did the upgrades. Yeah.
So basically, some things you can leave and some things you can do in
well,
later.
yeah.
So basically, because we've done a few upgrades and just made it almost the same as possible as the older version, and then slowly implemented newer things.
Yes.
And you can do that quite a lot. So I'm just wondering, is there a thing saying, if you do the least upgrade, what impact is definitely going to happen?
Yeah.
What impact can you then offset?
Yeah.
So then you can roll it out. I was just wondering if there's a minimum impact between 2.2, 2.4 and 2.6. Do you know what I mean? By
Yeah.
absolute minimum impact. So the user has less to overcome, understand it, and then you can roll things out, you can turn things on, upgrade things as you need to.
No, I fully get where you're going. Last year we did do that because we knew that the implication for end users from upgrading from 2.2 to 2.4 was a big thing, and I think when we did run a webinar and we talked through that in terms of the major impact. In terms of change in function from 2.2 to 2.6, we've basically just done it on a yearly basis, and from 2.4 to 2.6, there isn't much changes apart from the HTML editor and the editor for the end user. It's just bringing in a lot more features.
There's a lot of 2.2 users, so that level of support you get
Last year.
You need again, isn't
Yeah. And what I'll do is, did you receive the information from us last year? Who's on 2.2? 2.2. So Jane, so I'm quite happy to go and share the information from last year that we provided again. I haven't previously left it historically because we did have all the information on the demo site, and then we repurposed everything for this year. But I can certainly send you guys the information from last year in terms of the impacts. Yeah. I'm conscious that we've probably overrun quite a lot, but yeah.
Plugins.
Yeah. For some reason, I couldn't get in as teacher one on plugins.
Okay. You should be able to get in under manager. I know I've tested it on there, yeah.
I'm using admin, but not under teacher one.
Okay. It's probably not enrolled on there then, yeah. So basically, we've added a long list of all, this will be contributed plugins. So not the core standard set, so not Moodle core. This will be anything that is contributed, ULCC developed, and any proprietary plugins that we currently install. And basically as I say, I could go through the whole list, but one of the things I did get come through Moodle Upgrades was basically about information on these plugins, which we haven't provided this year. We've just basically done an outline. And I have taken that on board in terms of getting a bit more information about what the functions are of there. And anything where it's failed testing, where we wanted to put it in, but it's failed testing, we've marked as red, so it's not going to be in this build release for the moment. And anything in orange is where we know that it's maybe not ready yet, but it will be in our on there. So at the moment it is just a overview of the actual contributed plugins and the titles, and obviously I know from feedback coming back from Moodle Upgrades, people would like to have a bit more information about what these plugins do. So I'm currently writing something to add as an additional information further down the line about, you know, what do these tools, so that people can start looking at them post-upgrade.
Just for maybe help for other people, there were some plugins in 2.4 which we wanted to use recently. And when I looked on the list, it said it should be installed as per normal, but we actually didn't have it installed, so we had to then go back and ask for it. There were some drag and drop things in the quiz features, for example. So just so you know that by the time you go back and check out all the little things, that sometimes they're just not there. And just ask when they install the
We're expecting that this would mean when we upgrade you, you won't need to ask for any plugins apart from newly created ones, and then we would look to then build them into our next release cycle, because we've been moving everybody to Git managed doc routes, so we might be able to run a release later on in the year.
I thought Bedford College was developing
The grading
assessment management.
Yes, Richard has been reviewing that, and I think he's passed it recently, but we'll be adding that as an individual request at the moment because it's so late in the day in terms of where we drop with our build release. But in terms
Could you
of...
put it on your desktop?
Yeah.
So we can have a look. Do you remember Assessment Manager, some of you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Do you know if they've got their next tranche of
Yeah,
funding?
they have.
Yeah. Was that partly?
Yeah.
It's quite extensive, it takes a long time to look through.
Yeah, I know Richard's been reviewing it and speaking to them and various iterations because it failed some testing, but I think he's passed it now. So.
And my other question, what about Mahara?
Mahara?
Yes. Do some of you use Mahara?
Yeah. Last year, we had to come back and ask about Mahara. It doesn't seem to be treated in the same way as...
Is that the Mahara assignment?
No, I mean
what Mahara upgrade?
Mahara
Yeah, no, I fully we're actually looking at it at the moment because we've basically done only one upgrade and it's normally on request. We haven't actually had a proper release cycle with that. And I've spoken to Dave about trying to model that in a way because Mahara we could do upgrades much more than one a year and actually trying to adopt that in terms of for the Mahara services. So that's something that I'm working with Dave about, actually having a information about the release cycle because we haven't done that. We've done that on a request basis.
So what versions of Mahara are people on the table? I know it's the Moodle before.
We were almost at 0.7.
Yeah.
But Emily's put 1.8 onto the demo site.
Right. Oh, okay.
Which is we're looking at doing both at the same time.
And 1.8 is very different. So
yeah.
yeah. So certainly, I think we've worked towards actually making it more visible about our upgrade schedule for Moodle. But in terms of Mahara services, because they are slightly different, we do need to look at advertising what the schedule is and how we model that. Last year I sent an email saying that we wanted to upgrade everybody to 1.7 and that anybody that didn't upgrade to 1.7 before Christmas, we would actually force upgrades this year. And I'm still going through that now in terms of bringing everybody up to 1.7.
You mentioned Mahara assignments, obviously that was all linked in.
Yes.
It's good to have that all there as part and parcel of the same thing.
Yes. Well, it's included in our build, so Mahara assignment.
Any input from the IoT?
No, it's the same version. It's all been tested. It all works. Yeah.
One last question.
Yeah.
Now the accessibility block you've got on your demo site.
Yes.
Is that standard?
Yes. Well, it's not standard in Moodle, but it's standard in our build, so it'll be included.
So will we have that in 2.6?
Yes. Yeah.
So
and it's got the app bar as well. So you've got the speech to text and text to speech. Sorry.
It's available at 2.4.
Yes, it is. It's probably because at the moment what we're trying to do is get away from individual requests coming through and then reviewing them on, as we go through the year. What we want to do is have cycles where we build in hot fixes and new releases new plugin requests that we want to include in our build release. So this 2.6 will include everything that we've accepted and tested and works, and then we would go later on in the year, hopefully, to then update the release if there were hot fixes again already plugins that, as a community, have been requested that you wanted to add into our build.
Any more questions?
We're here, yeah, we're here as a resource to South Hills in terms of 2.6. Yeah. Any questions, do go to here, and then if you don't get the information you need, do come back to Moodle Upgrades and myself, and we'll hopefully answer the questions that you have.
And I suggest colleges are moving from 2.2 in particular. Just contact the ones that I'm sure colleagues will be helping you through the process. We already have got handouts for staff development. We're happy to share.
It's cold. Look,
I know.
Body warmers fancy. It's a room.
Can you do anything about that?
Birds on tables.
I think we have the HQ in here, and it was cold in here, and we tried to get it.
Our alleged intelligent building management system.
We have the same.
Not so intelligent, it seems.
Is it controlled?
So it's
it basically blows cold air. I don't know why. I'm just going to take a minute or two and quickly run through some of the actions from the last meeting. We conveniently sort of squeezed it in between Emily's and Dave's slot because most of them have been answered, and the ones that hadn't will be answered by Dave. There was a question about if we provide dates for the upgrades, so that has happened already. And for those of you who haven't, get in touch with Emily and ask for it. One note I made, which I just put a question mark behind because I can't work out what it actually means, is provide key information for company champions. Does anybody remember what was meant by that? If not, I mark it as solved. No? Okay, the plugin list Emily just showed you. I think one of the things we discussed is sort of stats and us looking at Moodle stats again, and if and how we make this available to you. Definition of what supported plugin actually means. Do we have that on the demo side, or?
We don't, but I think that's what Dave is.
Yeah, I will cover that briefly, but essentially, responsibility for keeping a plugin working as Moodle changes lies with you. Is the principle we are trying to embody both in our service and our service agreements. So, things we create, we share that, or we bear that burden. Those that third parties create, we look to them. If for some reason they don't keep the plugin updated for a new version of Moodle, yes, we could step in and take it and keep it working, but really have to do a case-by-case basis, and there'd be a lot of work there that somehow we have to pay for. And anything that you create yourselves, again, the responsibility to keep that working as Moodle changes. By default lies with you. We're here as a resource to help and provide assistance if required, but you would hopefully see that as being one services.
Okay. Another comment, sort of, yeah, probably more like a comment than an action from the last meeting was better way of measuring Moodle. Concurrent users is not a good metric, which I think Dave is somewhat going to cover in, or we kind of try to cover with the Bloom service. So Dave's going to go into that a bit. Again, with things like those, I think it's fair to say that we don't have all the answers. And if you have a metric that you think works better, or you want us to look at, or we should look at, then use this forum, use the GISC mail list, any way you can get in touch with us, and just let us and everybody else in the group know, because then we can have an open discussion about it. I don't confess to knowing everything at all times. I try to, but there was a question about a customer portal, which Jake's addressed. So we sort of, as soon as we have an outline and a schedule, we will let you know. So you kind of kept abreast, and I made a note to have a little slot at the next meeting so we can actually get some feedback, hopefully on the latest version that's live by then. And then last but not least, the JISC mailing list, which we've set up. If you haven't subscribed to that yet, let us know. We're going to recirculate the link for that. But the idea is it's a closed list for customers only. And, you know, anything you want to bring up or discuss there, let us know and we use it to communicate with you, basically. Yeah?
Or forums, whatever, whichever way you say it.
Of what?
Emperors, like
Emperors, yeah.
it was. We used to use Turnitin for assignment and plagiarism tool, but they were charging us a fortune, and so we've moved away from that. Now we've got Emperors that integrates within EPHORUS.
Yes.
Yeah. So far, I think
Yeah. I think you've done one or two little blog posts about it, how you get on, and so I mean that.
Yeah. Is anyone using Turnitin? Yeah. I can't believe they charge that.
And what's the disruption at the moment?
Funny enough, when we said we're going for another product, they reduced the tremendous.
A lot of people
amazed.
went for it because just subsidised it, didn't they, initially? So that's what got most of their things using alternative. And they certainly did a lot of work around it, and they just negotiated
I think so.
a price for their fee, but we didn't go for it because we didn't get it approved.
The plugin is included as core in Moodle connector, so it's in our build. You obviously
It'll
do
be
have service.
for Emperors.
Yes, yeah, but you do also need to have service.
It'd be interesting to look at that. To work with a different assignment the same way that Turnitin did. So you have an Emperors assignment.
No, I think you don't even see the
No,
product.
it's just the
Integration.
integration.
Yeah.
Any
The
questions?
drawback is students can't check their own.
One major feature of the last user group as well was a request for more documentation, and I asked on the email list as well. It's not so much what's already on Moodle Docs, you know, what happens when you press this button, but it's the sort of planning of things. If we could have a kind of a sort of roadmap of, like, you had a slide briefly there about what to consider before the upgrade.
Yes, it's on the demo side.
Okay, right. Things like, you know, what to consider before you do the rollover. There are several different ways of doing it, but, you know, if you don't do the right thing first, you can have quite a meltdown.
I'm very keen to have a knowledge base in service now, and I don't know where that is in the roadmap to have that, because all of that information that we're giving out in support on a day-to-day basis, rather than recreate the wheel every time, we would like to have that information provided in there. It's, I don't know whether or not that's
I can check with
Jane, where we are.
I think that's a sensible point.
I mean, certainly at the moment, we put anything that I think is going to impact on the day-to-day service, so even things with upgrades on the demo site, because it's a good way of us making available information regularly, rather than sending out emails that people then, you know, it's quite easy to sort of put them in one place. You get email overload, but, you know, if you want more emails from me on regular, I'm quite happy to send all this stuff, and I know that Frank's been working on in terms of the blog posts and in terms of information on there. I'm doing something this afternoon, I've been told.
Yes.
So, you know, definitely, there are more avenues to get communication out there. But I suppose it's this kind of documentation that you're looking for.
Well, it's sort of the consequence. If you pick this option, what will happen, and you know, what might happen if you don't do it.
And it's sort of, I mean, discussion form really is trying to, with the knowledge base, is trying to get, we might have done part of what you're trying to do, but then branched off and we can comment and help you with certain bits. It's trying to get us all to contribute to one thing, isn't rather than emailing between us. Or,
I think the blog for that would work well with it, but we think then it has a common message for you guys to start a conversation.
Well, I think even, I mean, the thing I quite like, just sort of with my marketing head on, is the sort of, you see this a lot as like top 10 tips or top 5 tips. It's something, and it's sometimes stuff that's not as detailed, but it gives you like a framework. You can decide, well, I want to know more about this, I look this up or I go into it, but at least it gives you something to start with, and then you sort of wheel off.
The documentation is always going to be a way, you don't want to be wading through lots and lots of stuff, but you just want to get, I've got this issue.
I just sent this to Emily, but I've been deleting anything that comes that says Moodle upgrade. Because, you know, if you get 150 emails, as we all do a day, and I was told to delete that if it wasn't, but obviously some of them have been coming from Emily, which I completely missed, because you do send from lots of different email addresses. So is there a way of standardizing what email, or use ULCC as the start of the subject? And then I probably would look at that first. But I have just thrown out lots of interesting information without realizing it.
Well, we can. I mean, most of the stuff we send comes from service.
It does, unfortunately, like some of the distribution will have to come from me at the moment. So that's
Come
what
from-
we really need to check about. Because that's why I tend to send you an extra email.
I mean, some of the things I'll talk about, which is where we'll be moving to actually having a recognisable product and service in our own right, which clearly and openly based upon Moodle, but I would expect to start seeing the names for that appearing in communication a lot more often than Moodle. So things should become more recognisable, I think, as we start to, the idea of productising something, naming it, branding it, rather than just referring to our Moodle service.
Well, if it said ULCC at the
I would
beginning,
say that.
that's,
It's the same-
I would,
Same
I
kind
would.
of thing, yeah.
It would alert me, but,
Okay.
thank you.
Customer showcase. I mean, usually we sort of try and get one of you guys up to tell us a bit what you've been up to. But for those of you who've been here last time, you can see we changed this layout slightly, and basically make sure all of you say something, even if it's for a minute or two. And basically just go around the room and tell us what you're currently up to, if there's any projects you're working on, any issues you have, any plans you have. And then hopefully as a group, there might be some things you're all thinking of or you're all not interested in. And we sort of find out some common ground. So I don't know if you, Joe, do you want to start off?
Thanks. As we said last time, we're looking at badges. We're trying to integrate badges from Moodle into Mahara and work more in terms of building that link with ECVs. And the upgrade, I think, is key at the moment, so that we can get everything into one site.
Yeah.
And move forward from there.
And your EFROS project, how's that, what sort of timescale on this? Because I know you're still piloting.
Well,
No, we've gone for
You're going for it?
yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if some of you may not know, we've got Moodle, is it 2.5, Moodle in-house sort of installation to enable us to use open badges. So as the study programs, we've got 100 hours of enterprise, and we decided to give students electronic badges for completion of different tasks. Obviously now when we go to 2.6, we'll have to merge the two instances, the external and internal, into one. The other thing I think is quite interesting actually, because we put most of our efforts into EME, it's what we call the VLE, the Moodle EILP plugins in Mahara and Gmail and all of that into one. And there's quite a lot of people in the college now pushing for moving away from the EILP plugin into, what's the one? ProMonitor. So how many of you are using ProMonitor? Yeah, so that's one route for EILP, so potentially that might go away. And the other one is Smart Assessor. How many of you use Smart Assessor? Yeah. So for apprenticeships and all that, MVQ type of e-portfolio. Now, Smart Assessor has also got you can add all the resources in one, to unit level, or, share it with the rest of the cohorts. So I'm just starting to think, okay, so we have got potentially a group of the work-based learning staff that may not use ENI, the BLE and IOP and all of that, they use their own smart assessor. And then also the Google apps, and lots of staff in the college are starting to move away, they're using more Google. So it's just, I think, it's just something to be aware of, that there might be, although we invested a lot of time on the tools that we're discussing now, things, it feels as if we might branch off, and it's just a consideration as to where would I leave what we currently have.
Okay, thanks.
What I've been doing mainly is we don't have a lot of either stick or carrot coming down to the management about Moodle, and we've had a turbulent year of restructuring and so forth, so we haven't done a real sort of quality exercise like we tried to do last year. So I've been following Rod's model of trying to get people to use books to improve the appearance of it. So the main thing I've been doing recently is rewriting the intranet courses for the staff and the students along the lines of a bit like the grid format, having a few icons, nothing appearing on the course, but a few icons that link through to books that are all interrelated with all the information. And we're gradually trying to get people to look at that and say, oh, how do I make my course look like that? To get some take-up on that way. I hope when we go to 2.6, we're going to try and use badges to sort of give people a bit of an incentive, because at the moment, everyone's just left to get on with it. Really. I think we maybe need to have some sort of Moodle leaders who will actually give a hand to the others. But I think informally that's happening in a lot of courses anyway, with kind of one person who just gets badges for moving it. So it'd be nice if they've got some recognition of that.
Okay, thanks.
Just preparing for the upgrade on the 23rd of June to 2.6. And also the clash that we're having at the moment between that and staff getting ready for the new BTECs that are coming out. Their engagement with us has just gone stop, because there's so much planning that's got to go into all the new level 2 stuff, and obviously we have to then rebuild the courses and stuff with them before the end of the year. That's happening, and to try and convince them to do any training before that just wouldn't happen. And we're also, like I said, having loads of problem maternity, and it's a real problem for us. Loads of crashes constantly.
It said this morning as well.
Did it crash again? Did it? Yeah.
I've had 3 updates already this morning about it.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's absolutely not. We've got a lot of students submitting at the moment for work, and it's just not working. So we're trying to work on that.
Thank you.
I'm not FE, I just have to say I'm adult ed, so we have slightly different issues. And our major one this last year has been that we've moved premises, and at the same time moved our IT systems from sort of relatively in-house to the local authority system, of which we are a part anyway. And that caused problems. So we missed an upgrade last year because our IT team couldn't provide us with the IP address in time. It was a bit of a mess. So now we're trying to catch up. So at the same time, I'm doing an audit of the courses that we have, and also sort of trying to clean up the number of learners on it, because they've just been left for years. So we've got quite zillions of them really. And so we're also looking at encouraging, I mean that's another, everybody has the issue of encouraging tutors to use to learners, but we're working through that as well, through creating e-learning newsletters and encouraging people not only to use Moodle but other ILT and other provisions. So it's a kind of ongoing thing. But we do sometimes feel kind of a bit poor relation, because we never have any contact at all with ULCC, pretty much, except for emails. And I think I came to one of the forums that we did last year looking at the portal, and we kind of promised, at least to find out who our contact was. That's never happened, so we're a bit disgruntled, shall we say.
Okay, thank you.
City Lit not doing a great deal speaking major and specific at the moment because lots of little bits constantly. We have a bit of staff development, a couple of events that the OSC also joined us in on earlier in the week. And suddenly we're inundated with people wanting to know how to do all sorts of things. We're our updates booked for probably one of the last, definitely about the 2nd of August or whatever, because again our cycle is completely different to yours in that respect, being mostly non-accredited. So we are leaving it to the last. What we have been talking to the Regional Support Centre about is a lot of adult community college people not getting access to that much in the way of training. So we're talking, Martin's been trying to convince us to actually offer our online introduction to Moodle staff training course to outsiders. So we're looking at doing that in the autumn after we've upgraded, so that we can work through that as a fairly basic introduction for that sort of sector. It won't be as involved as what a lot of colleagues around the table need to do because it's a different sector in many respects. So we're looking at doing that. The other thing again, it takes it out of this a bit, but we were talking to Richard when he came to the service visit to us recently. And our IT team have been struggling to get Xerti working properly because we want to create more interactive content rather than just repositories of stuff. We have been struggling with that, and I think it's a project that just found that not even kind of back in Xerti, but kind of work properly for authentication and all sorts. So, Bridget was saying that again, there are a number of customers that have been talking about that and whether or not that could be offered as a way of another ULCC service instead for those people who just can't get that to work with their own infrastructure properly. But that's for future, and that's only a comment, really.
Which school is that?
Sorry?
Xerti. I was just on.
Really? How many of you 30?
Well, we've done various projects using Xerti with detectors because of all our accessibility stuff. We have to do a lot of stuff with signed versions of things with our students, so that it's a wonderful thing. But I can do it. I've got a local access, but I'm trying to make it more available to everybody. Yeah. And as I said, we're struggling with the authentication on that, but we understand why. It's a bug. It doesn't work after all these weeks of struggling. But
is it not funded anymore, that project?
again, it is through Nottingham, and again, like a lot of open source stuff. It's it's not as you struggle. The community sometimes works and sometimes doesn't.
I think we've got our own installation. Do some of you have your own server for Xerti?
Well, yes, that's what you've got to do currently, but as I said, we can make it work locally, internally, but we want it externally accessible, authenticated through LDAP and all that, so that it's that. Yeah, we have instructions. Yeah, it's easy.
So is that something that individual colleges could initially, if it's not part of your general setting, talk to you about integrating, or?
Yeah, I think it probably would be come talk to us. Richard's obviously.
Yeah, Hamger and John Hilton and technology team. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, at Greenwich we've got our big upgrade next week, so we've got a lot of things crossed in relation to that. And it will need as people are saying, it'll need a huge amount of staff training and so on, but we're going to make it a big splash, and we've already flagged it up on the front page of the old version, put it in the newsletter, and we've got our e-learning people, champions in learning areas, spreading the message. So what we're hoping it will do is actually sort of drag the thing into the 21st century a bit and give it a new impetus, and bring it into the planning of things much more, not just, and have you thought about putting it on the VLE sort of thing as an afterthought, but really trying to get people to plan around what the capability of Moodle is and how it will help people. Other than that, just to say we are still an e-tracker college, and although we have looked at, well, Smart Assessor, they don't leave you alone once they think you might vaguely, possibly be interested. They're on to you all the time, but and we have thought about Pro Monitor, but we've only been with eTracker for a couple of years, and we don't think people would really appreciate it if we started changing that as well. That's about where we're at.
I'm also at Greenwich, but one of the things we've been doing is integrating our electronic resources through Moodle and promoting it. We recently moved to Open Athens LA, which links to our Active Directory. And so that's been really good in increasing our electronic resources use, making things available on Moodle so students can access it at turn.
Yeah, we've got two systems. We've got one that's internal that we run on the server and one that we've got hosted. The reason why I've got one internal is because we have to have autonomous development. We forever asked to do new things with like the IRP, etc. If we can't do it, then, well, basically there isn't an answer saying you can't do it. It has to change. They say the end user has to have the power of the right, so that's why we've got that. We're also looking at e-portfolio systems, Smart Assessor, another one, so I'll be interested to see what happens with gradebooks, etc. When that starts to kick in, who will be using gradebook, who will be using an e-portfolio system. The college is trying to push a system across the board, so they have one tracking stroke portfolio system. If that doesn't work for you, then obviously you can then use the Moodle system, the gradebook. So that's the statement at the moment, but we need to see where that's going to take us. The other things would be obviously, there's now a big push as well. I'm doing a presentation to management, to SLT this week, and existing tools, all staff on courses are going to have to start to say why they're not using tools. So it's going to be part of the quality process to start saying, well, why aren't you using this as opposed to the other way around? So that start to come in, and so basically we'll be using the main core plugins to make sure that they're used effectively, quizzes, etc., and things like that. Lots of things that are underused anyway, to start pushing them. And the other key ones is badges and the awards, so students can give feedback. We want to try and get as much student feedback as possible on courses, in any way that we can get that. And the award system seems to be quite a good one. Course awards and badges as well. Badges is really keen to push badges. So at the moment it's like a jigsaw puzzle, trying to pull it all together. So that's where we're at the moment. Hopefully we'll have some answers for that soon. And also your what you call it, your charging service is a bit difficult to, like if you've got 7,500, if you've got 8,000 users or 9,000 active users, you automatically go on the higher band. The banding's a bit large. I'd be interested to know if there's a bit more incremental could be. So I don't know if that was part of this. Well, as in if you're paying £5,000 for 750.
Yeah, shall we take that back up?
Yes. Sorry, yes. So I think it's It's
but
just something.
I'm interested in your model, in and out.
Yes, okay, but the increments are kind of quite big.
Yeah.
And if you just jump it over one, you kind of.
It's a sort of.
I know it's a tough one. I know.
Final draft. Good question. Just before final draft. Just one follow-up question for you. You mentioned some e-portfolio grading system that's supposed to be used across institutions.
Yes.
Which one?
We haven't made an official decision on that yet. We're evaluating a number of options, Pro Monitors, Smart Assessor, etc. We use Skills Award for the construction area. So basically there'll be one system that everyone has to use unless their qualification board offers a better solution and or it cannot work for them, then they'll be using Moodle. So we'll be interested to see whether Moodle will be better it's 2.6 with everything in it, compared to Smart Assessor, which we paid extra money for, and also can we invest that money into Moodle? It's kind of about 12. That's quite a lot of money we invest in portfolios.
Okay.
So it's no decision yet. Hopefully soon.
Okay, we upgraded to 2.4 in October last year. It was quite a quick thing because we wanted to get the new version of PLP, so it was all sort of quite a quick sort of jump. So as a result, we kind of did it as a sort of soft upgrade. We didn't really tell many people. We just did it, and we didn't have any problems with it. Well, you know, there was some grumbling, as you would have, but we explained the benefits of it, and people really appreciated it. So going from, that was 2.2 to 2.4, which everybody keeps saying that's a really big jump and stuff, but for us, yeah, but at the moment we go standard end of year stuff, so we're just getting ready for next year, ready for all the courses and stuff. We're looking to upgrade to 2.6. I think we're going to do the same thing again this year, just do it, mop it up after. But yeah, in 2.6 we're looking at badges, obviously, and also the integration with Office 365.
Yeah, they're included in the build as well. So.
Yeah, so at the moment we've got Office 365. We've got it for students. I'm trying to get it for staff as well, because you can share of documents and stuff. But yeah, I think having it in Moodle as well will really help. I think that's about it really. We're trying a different approach with training, CPD, technology in general. Obviously, we're all part of that, but yeah, we're going to sort of take ownership of the training room. We've got a training room that just doesn't get used, and so we're going to take ownership of that. So we're a big part of that.
Okay, thanks.
Well, being in a school, still a bit behind everybody else, set up a staff admin and staff portal recently with all the staff CPD documents and other papers that they need just for their general day-to-day work, just to try to drag them onto the VLE in some way, and taken all those things off of the shared area, so that the only way that they can get any of the stuff that they need every day is now by going on the VLE. So quite a lot of queries about that. Trying to advertise the drag and drop facility, which is fantastic, and still though receiving daily emails from different members of staff asking me to put up documents for them. So those are the two good things anyway. On the not so good side, similarly to you, I'd really like to move away from being a document repository into a really learning environment, and in order to do that we need more use of activities, but the teachers won't do that until we get integration with our school management system. And because being a school we use Sims, which is owned by Capita, and Capita doesn't talk very nicely with everything else, so it's really a major ongoing headache with us that we have to do this, and also to get the parents to be able to get the parents to use the Moodle as well, because the parents will just go through it like a dose of salts and really shake the teachers up as soon as they get on. So I'm desperate to get the parents on, but the only way to do that really is to get integration, so that all their details are there. So I'm really desperate to do that.
So we have a parent portal, but I think 3 parents use it.
Alright, maybe it's different in school.
Yeah.
Maybe it depends on the school as
Yeah.
well. But the school where we are, it's really sought after, and the parents die to get their children in, and they're really proactive.
Yeah.
So I think that they would look at it and they would say, well, there should be more of this, there should be more of that, and that would be brilliant for the driver, I think.
Okay, thank you. Al?
We're on 2.4, we're moving to 2.6 on Thursday, so if you want to contact me. If I don't reply, it's because our email's gone down again, but that's another story. I think we mostly, in spite of everything, it's used as a repository. All the wonderful activities and course completions and things of that sort are very underused. We didn't really have a big problem when we went to 2.4 in terms of training, because those people who are innovative came and asked questions, and those people who just throw things up asked their neighbours to throw things up for them. And I think it's an ongoing problem. We had a very good Ofsted inspection. They didn't look at Moodle at all. We had an HE inspection, and I'm just saying I went through and made sure the spelling was correct and capital letters were used in the right place. I mean, that's, unless you have somebody who puts up a course template and checks all the time, you get ongoing variable usage. But my main point was, how many of you are familiar with the FELTAG report that just came out?
Yes.
So if 10% of courses need to be online in the next 18 months, Moodle has a pretty key role to play in this, in terms of making sure it's working all right and making sure the courses are designed properly so that they're usable for students online, because our students love Moodle. They love being able to access their information. And I think there's just a very big learning curve or a management curve to get staff to pay attention to just some of the basics of working online. So,
What was that, sorry?
FELTAG. FELTAG.
Old. I'm just to sort of pick up from, we get noise from both sides. Just to pick up on a point you made, and it's been made 2 or 3 times earlier. We, in the HE user group, we had Stephen Malakowski from St. George's, I think. And we discussed something with him which kind of started within the HE group, but we sort of think would be beneficial to all of our customers. He's done quite some interesting work on learning activities, design, and sort of the thinking of think about what you want to do and then think about the tools. And that's sort of slightly different approach. One of the things we're currently discussing with him is with the view of having a big joint event around Christmas this year with HE and FE together, maybe do a little competition and get people to submit their learning designs and their ideas, and then we rate them. We haven't worked it out yet. It's kind of like thinking in the cloud. But the idea is just to get that out to the community. And Stephen and Richard did a little presentation at Moodle Mood 2 weeks ago in Edinburgh about learning design and why it's important and things you should consider and how you can help your staff to do that. So one thing I'm thinking is if we get this maybe in a blog post, get Stephen to share some of his ideas, and then just get this going, because you know he has some really good and quite simple, like in a nice way, quite simple ideas on how you can make stuff interesting with what Moodle gives you, and you know, also looking, no big budget thing, just kind of very sensible ideas, and I think there's a good maybe community and ongoing discussion that's to be had.
We haven't got even standard in terms of, I mean, what might be good for us might be like average to others. It might be good for us as well to share what we think is really good and what we think is not so good, and then you think, oh, actually, I thought that was very good, and so we can define our own stuff, define our own standards. Just going back to your comment about the BLE and inspectors. Well, our inspectors made a comment about the BLE, but it wasn't the BLE that they made completely. It was skills builder. Some of you use skills builder? Right. So we moved away from BKSB, the West North initial diagnostic assessment, to skills builder. And there is an element, it has got some elements of the BLE, hasn't it? It's got the content. So the nice thing about it is that you do there is a screening process, a few questions, then the initial, then the diagnostic. Based on the spiky profile, we refer students, he prepares the skills plan for students. This is the content you need to learn, here it is, videos and blah, blah, blah. And then as they progress, then teacher gets people. Well, we've just introduced it this year, in the summer, so obviously they wanted to have a look at it and say, well, we've got some, good practice, some teachers already, some students who are already doing distance travel, that's another good feature of the program. So, but they referred it about the BLE underutilised. I was shocked, because our BLE, I mean, you have the data, is really well used. But that again, and they wouldn't have it.
But that's because, as is highlighted in the Belgrade report, that Ofsted completely missed the mark on looking at e-learning. They don't understand what they're looking at, what the intentions are for organisations.
The other key thing, some students didn't and some teachers didn't mention it. Well, that's because it's so, it's just part of what they do. And said, right, are they using it? So they came to us, we gave them all the stats, and that's maybe something that we need more help from you. When they ask us, is your, this particular course well used? And you have to go through, Joe is like, oh God, and try and find, you get sometimes so minute detail of logins that you don't get the overall picture of how well the courses are used. So again, we presented them with lots of stats, and they just dismissed it.
They didn't ask us, honestly, they asked us for no stats, no nothing, they didn't want to log it, nothing.
Did you say your BLE was well utilised
Yeah.
in the report, in your quip and in your?
They didn't even look at it. No.
The thing is, if you say something's is well utilised, then you have to. Well, you don't have to, but they will then look at it and then evaluate it. If you don't say it, if it's not seen as a strength,
the only bit that we had a whole group, completely different curriculum areas. Every teacher saying, I use the VLE in this, and some others say I use mobile technology. So it was really rich, and they were like, oh wow. But that was it. And I thought, well, we're going to get a really good report for e-learning. The only mention was the VLE underutilised. Shocking.
Well, Ofsted, I mean, it's really poor. Even their service and their resources for online learning is not very good, because when you go, they call it the Ofsted portfolio, and then when you go into the Ofsted portfolio, then you find examples of VLEs, etc.
Yeah.
And it's buried so deep. It's so.
Well, one thing, obviously we make the most of bad experience, and we're concentrating much more effort now in the classroom. So mobile technology, because the VLE, it's not really, it's used outside the classroom. Students go to refer, and some teachers might have it as, here are my notes, what we're covering today. But we expect that to happen really outside, so we're concentrating on the pedagogy, like internal daily teaching.
I think it's interesting what you're saying about if you report it, because when we had our Ofsted a couple of years ago, because we're expecting one this year in the autumn, but we actually set up an ILT user group for them to visit and question, which was a big mistake because we had thought that we were using it. We were quite proud of what we were doing. And they looked at that and they just said, and we had sort of an improvement on the e-learning side of it. So it's a kind of tricky balance, I think. So then they said it was a couple that's not been used properly and this sort of thing. And then they, it was useful in the sense that it gave us focus as to what we had thought we were doing well and what they expected us to be doing, and that was quite useful. But it was interesting, I think, had we not set up the group, then they wouldn't even looked at it.
If you hadn't mentioned it, they wouldn't have looked at it, because it's not in your quip, in your report. It's not there. You're not saying it's your strengths.
But
if you're saying it's your strength or your weakness, then you have to look into that.
But now, because we did mention it, and because it was then as part of the sort of action planning, so now, of course, every time it will be looked at, which is fine, because we feel we've travelled.
It would be great if Ofsted really knew what they were doing, and I would appreciate that, but I don't feel they do. So I personally wouldn't put it in a report for people who are.
I just want to point out this is being recorded.
Okay, fair enough. Well,
good.
Ofsted.
I support what you're saying about the learning design. It's really, really important. And we have the most success with staff development when we promote staff development around learning design. Like, we don't advertise, we're going to teach you this tool. We're going to look at assessment for learning. And assessment for learning includes these series of tools. And by flipping that around, it's really helped teachers engage. They might come along with just one problem they've got, probably we just sit there and discuss it with them and then identify a tool that resolves that problem for them. Much better.
Just,
Have you?
you've learned?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Don't let anyone near.
So sorry.
Right, tell me if I go on too long. I've been making notes of the luck of sort of listening to everybody else. I'm really pleased you mentioned FELTAC, and I think I felt sort of a bit when I was reading it again on the way down, and I think it was a bit of a sort of elephant in the room, because it's what it talks about really sort of does put VLEs into sharp focus. So, a bit from the College of West Anglia, really. About 2 years ago, I made a decision to change my focus of trying to get e-learning to work in our college. And I decided almost not to do e-learning. So I stopped faffing around with content development and trying to encourage our staff to learn how to develop good online content. I stopped playing with things like Xerti and refocused on trying to find something that would give me the management support within the college. And also answer some of the things that Ofsted and some of the outside body are looking for, and help with the sort of financial side of things and economic course delivery. And that focus was successful. And we had the same thing. I managed to fend off quite a while ago a sort of threat from ProMonitor in that we were about to go all into ProMonitor, about to become my job. We had it on trial for about three or 4 months, and it was about to become my job to run that in the college. And I could quickly see how it was potentially going to disconnect assessment and staff would be entering things onto this system that actually had nothing to do with learning. It was just an administration system, a check and chase tool. So what I did instead was try to get to a point where Moodle, we were doing things in Moodle that actually answered that quite same question. So we ended up going down the route of what we call Gradebook, which is not just the Moodle Gradebook, but actually pulling data out of that and fundamentally using the outcomes tool in Moodle against assessments and assignments, and quizzes and other things, pulling that out and making that represent a kind of Gradebook report that can be used at management and by course directors and teachers. And it's proven to be fairly successful. We've got some reasonable sort of heavyweight program managers within the college behind that, and it's now gained momentum. It's now becoming a de facto approach. So we do have smart assessor as well, and that's coming for work-based learning, and particularly our technology faculty are using that, and they're finding all the sort of great things with that and all the problems of actually administering and making it work. Quite interesting, Smart Assessor, when I came in, that this is being done independently. It's quite interesting to sort of sit in the back of the room at a few training discussion events around the implementation of it in college, to see how aggressively Smart Assessor are attacking the FE market. They're not just interested in work-based learning, but they're saying their portfolio can do the ILP for the whole college, it can do full-time traditional BTECs, it can do everything. So I'm quite interested to watch that develop in college and see how it impacts on movement. We took an approach where we managed to gain management support for what we were doing, and we've now moved that on to a kind of quality approach. So we've now, through our gradebook reporting, we're also doing high-level management reports which show whether all of our level 3 courses are actually engaging with that gradebook, so showing whether they're doing their assessment online, and it's being checked and chased through as to why they are or aren't, and we're beginning to get some momentum in that. We're also doing some reporting on what we created course guides. So we've divided our courses up. We now have a course guide for every course in the college and a learning and assessment course. And it splits it between all the kind of information giving stuff, like an online handbook, introduction to the team, and kind of resource repositories can go in there. And it focuses the learning and assessment course on assessment mainly. And my hope is that by really focusing on assessment and getting the information there for the learners and looking at progress, eventually the space will open up to do really good high quality e-learning and create some really good courses. So it's sort of been a big change for the thinking. It's been quite hard at times because sort of seeing opportunities and people want to do good quality e-learning. But unfortunately, I think we have the resource at the moment, so we don't start having tried and sort of managed to make little bits of progress through ILT changes and things in the past, and failed really to have any major impact and failed to get any support. It's been quite an eye-opener. I was also going to mention just we've gone Office 365 as well, which is sort of in the early stages of that, and I think the connection with social media and the communication side of things is something that's really hot on my agenda for next year, to really get communication between teachers and learners and other stakeholders in the college, including employers and parents, really working, because at the moment it really doesn't work. We use Moodle messaging extensively and we're quite successful in getting that used as an alternative to email. But overall, it doesn't really work, and we want to get, what I'd like to do is get our Moodle messaging service with the learners and others who want to engage with it, being able to choose where they want to receive those messages. So if I happen to use Facebook messaging, I can connect and receive my Moodle messages through that stream. That's something that's sort of hot on our agenda. And the other thing I was going to mention was, in terms of ILPs, you mentioned Smart Assessment has an ILP, and you mentioned ProMonitor has an ILP.
Not Smart Assessment, not
Not
Smart
Smart
Assessment.
No, okay. So what's the other alternative?
ProMonitor.
ProMonitor ILP. There is another alternative that might come on stream, which is Bedford are now developing an ILP as well, which is quite interesting to take a look at. I think their next tranche of funding is now.
That's right. Agreed.
And I know it started off from the ULCC one, and then redeveloped, taking into account some of the original concepts, but none of the original intellectual property rights, and I just think it's worth looking at that. And our ILP is quite well developed, but it is, again, to move away from learning, quite focused on business process. We're about to get a new customer relations management system, which hopefully will take over some of that and leave the ILP to focus back on what it's supposed to be used for.
Did you consider Google instead of
I did. Nobody else was, so I stopped pretty quickly. Considering Google's what I use and have been for years, and I've had to sort of trying to get myself weaned off at the moment of Office 365. I would have probably chosen Google. However, I can understand why the decision was made quite some time ago in our IT strategy to stay as Microsoft focused as we possibly could for a range of reasons. So,
we use Google with our teaching staff and
I
the
think-
rest of the college.
I think it's much better for teaching and learning, much more flexible. We can do more exciting things with it, but I think I quite like the restricted nature of Office 365, and the SharePoint element was the thing that sold it. I didn't really have an answer for that on the Google side. So,
Well, it's amazing to see the amount of organisations, private organisations, are moving away from Microsoft for complete Google, cloud solutions.
And just one thing, it's not my thing, but I was just going to say that a while ago there was some discussion about reporting. It was quite a big focus. I missed it group, and we've done a huge amount. We use the nightly database dump, push that across the SQL server, and do another team in the college does this wonderful reporting for us. So we're able to leverage a lot of the data that's generated through our Moodle. Where's ULCC at with that? And the big sort of question for us is can we get access to our data even more regularly than nightly? I know you were looking at doing some central reporting.
Okay. We looked at the Moodle stats question. I think we're comfortable again with it being on again.
Right.
Beyond that, we've developed our own plugin which allows us to build additional reports. That, I think in the services I talked about, it's planned to be in there as standard. So there will be reporting and we will be increasing those numbers of reports.
So reporting we've developed so far, how many people around the table have seen that?
Yeah, I was going to say very few.
Very few.
That is what I've seen, isn't it?
But
there's very little there.
There is.
I mean,
absolutely.
when I say I've seen it and thought there isn't anything here.
And the reason there isn't is because to do more interesting things that you need to do what you're doing, which is landing that data somewhere other than on your production Moodle, and that's we do offer and will be offering a service whereby there'll be a mechanism for automatically putting your data somewhere else, allowing you to access it. But unfortunately, it doesn't come for nothing because that's a whole other environment, processes, storage, etc., etc. But the mechanisms and possibilities are already in place.
What about the mechanism of getting it more regularly from there to us?
Yeah, more recently I've been considering as to whether that can be built in as a more reasonable halfway house, i.e. you give us a place to put it and we'll put it.
We've got infrastructure, we don't need any additional. So
I wouldn't say I've been able to go much further than, yes, that actually sounds like a workable, interesting idea. I'm quite sure you're getting out with more frequently than nightly, which is interesting.
We're beginning now to struggle with that being often enough for the type of reporting that we're doing.
Are you looking at web services so you can call it on a...
Yeah, we'd love to, potentially, but we haven't sort of got there yet. I think nightly's going to be okay, but I can see next year us getting to a point where there's going to be a real drive to say, look, these reports are great and it's really working for us, but we really need it.
Because I'm just wondering, it would be useful, I mean, I would be useful to find out what kind of information they're wanting to get out of it, because, there are various ways of getting information out of Moodle, and obviously Moodle's going much more to having connections and web services and APIs set up, and we've got across the board lots of different services.
I think that the thing with that is that what we're doing is because we're further education, it's quite quick and dirty and cheap. So we're not talking about employing developers and kind of having proper project management around it. What we're talking about is we pull the whole database down, we stick it in tables, we have some really good skilled SQL heads who sit there and we go, right, we're trying to do this report. We know roughly it's in there, and there. They're beginning to really understand the Moodle bit, to be able to go, right, does that look right? We go back to Moodle and go, yeah, actually, that's really good.
I think what
builds like that.
we want to do is open up the various channels for, on one extreme there's the crunching of that data that is going to be time consuming, which needs to be done somewhere else, either sent to your end or hosted by us. But then the data which you can get quickly and easily with minimal impact, there are a number of different ways which we would potentially be able to build that into the live service so that you could get it dynamically as and when through web services or reporting plugins or various other methods. So the interesting thing is about the particular queries that they're doing to find out what's interesting to you. The judgment needs to be made on what is the impact of that, so to decide which route to go down.
I mean, how interesting is this to everybody else?
Yeah.
Better. I mean, learning analytics is mentioned in the FELFAC report. It's one of the for the next 10 years, but I think it's one of the things on the horizon gazing that's actually much closer than probably we need to be doing, looking at what our learners and what our staff are doing in our learning platform and trying to mine that for learning information.
Certainly of interest to us.
Yeah,
in a number of different ways.
So I think, what's the best way for us to work with you on that? Because we have, I could really get up, I could bring my guy up now and say, you send over every single query that you've used against our Moodle tables to ULCC and roughly what what it's done and why we've done it. But I don't know whether that'd be of any use to you at all. It's sort of trying to, you need to know what we're actually producing in terms of reports off Moodle.
But we need to know what you're trying to find out, I think. We may have bits and pieces of the puzzle already, we may have produced them.
I mean, one thing I kind of would suggest, again, for the benefit of the group and everyone here, is if I can follow this up with you, or whoever does it at your end, because my first thought is, if you or someone else in the college does a guest post on our blog, tells us what you're looking at and why, and maybe some examples, if it's stuff that you can share, obviously. But then that's a good starting point for other people to go, oh yeah, we haven't thought about this, or no, we want something else. We can use it to feed into what we're doing.
To summarise how it happened, and I think this is the way things happen in further education, is what we tried to get to is a position where, through some of the early reports we did, were not for their own ends, they were almost just to demonstrate to staff that actually if you use this system, it's not a closed black box. It was to say that if you start to use it and you start using quizzes extensively, and Moodle doesn't have the tool that's going to tell you what you need, we have other ways of doing it. So it's trying to sort of just get them to think differently about it. We encourage more staff to use the platform. What it's done is it's caused some of our, particularly the managers, to take it more seriously. But it's much more organic than sort of planned. So, yeah, it would be good. More than happy to do that and share some of the reports, the queries, and the methodology.
I think you can get very rich data in terms of, I mean, one year we did an analysis of the use of the DLE and did a correlation between success, students that succeeded, and obviously the evidence was it was there, but then you could say, is it because those students are already motivated, so they will go to the DLE anyhow? So I suppose it would be interesting to see which courses are really rich in content, interactive, whatever you want to call it, and they're contributing to students succeeding. That, I think, to us, to make sure that we're doing the right thing, but also to senior managers, they'd be like, all right, you're adding some value.
You see, that's a bit what we're doing. We're so focused on the assessment side, we're not looking too much at the content, we looked at the course goals. We are doing some reports on what's there and whether staff have modified the original template that we've given them, so we can see whether staff made any effort in terms of their own report.
But for assessment, you can use it for distance travel and early identification of dropping up students.
We've got graphs showing the sort of trajectory of learners and distance travelled and grade profiles, and done quite a lot of work around that. The thing I'm really interested to find out about is they're currently logging, staff are logging their grades and every piece of assessment on this, and the grade book is looking really good. What I expect will happen at the end of the year is that as we've already noticed that not enough assessment is happening early in the year, and it's all sort of stacked at the end. And what we expect will happen is even those courses that are doing really well now will suddenly stop doing it. And when we talk to them, we'll say, but we're so busy getting everything through, and it will actually tail off. We probably won't, even though the learners will succeed, the grade book will probably show that the last few bits of assessed work are not actually logged on there at all. So we're quite interested in finding that out as well, and finding out, having it contribute to the planning of assessment on courses. That's our sort of first bit of true learning analysis that we're going to do, learning analytics that we're going to do is about assessment.
Sorry, the location of the data is important, because one thing that surely happens every week is that when senior leaders get together, is they come out and they want information in a different report, in a different format. So if we would have to come back each time to find some new list of reports that might match what we need or whatever, we actually need to go to our developers and say, I need this, which is currently what they do with Prem, so they pull the information out in whatever format is requested, and I can see the same thing happening with us. So for us to be able to have our data updated all the time, something safe for us to use, would be really useful.
Definitely, it's not unusual for a senior manager to actually go down and sit with our CRS team and sort of be producing an ad hoc report on the fly. And I think that's where we need to get to with that movement makers, that kind of agile
I'm conscious of time and the fact that lunch arrived. So shall we, are you okay if we grab a bite to eat, sit back down and
Yeah,
do your session? I think that sounds sensible. Yeah? Okay.
It's
Make a start.
Okay, are we all munching away? All good? Yeah. So then Dave's going to the service definitions and the whys and hows.
Yes. So, those of you who came last time would have had my colleague John Hilton talking about things like account management and so on. Jake's has sat and talked about the portal and service management improvement and so on. This is hopefully an introduction or an overview of the thing which I think is the foundation of all of those, which is we keep talking about services, but this is actually about what are the services that you want from us and we provide to you. So we have posted on blogs and various channels some of the detail behind this, and I think at least verbally last time we outlined some of the thinking and the principles or the things that we recognised needed to be addressed. Since that time we worked quite hard on producing a number of things. One is we've broken down what is currently described as our Moodle service, which probably to each one of you means something slightly different, and actually broken that down into a number of services that then allow us to cater for different customers' needs. And we've also written the service level agreements that go behind those. We haven't done all of them. We're working through them in what we think is a sensible order of priority, and the pack that's on the desk is the first page is essentially the service catalogue of the list of services that we plan to develop and want to be offering in the not too distant future. Then there are 3 service level agreements which are the most relevant 3 to, well, all customers, and for FE those 3 probably cover 90% of the services you need from us at the moment. So there's a lot of detail in those, as Joe described them as they are the small print, but they have been written by me rather than by a lawyer. The intention is they should be readable. They should be saying, in this event, this will happen, this is what we will do here, and so on and so forth. If there's anything that's not clear or missing and so on, then I would like to know about it via this group, email, comment on the blog, any channel you like. So this session probably works best if you ask questions. If something sounds unclear or you think we've overlooked some particular issue you're aware of, then please do raise it. But because there's a lot of detail in there, which I think you can only really digest by taking it away and having a look and see what you think of it, I'm just going to give an overview of the principles that went into producing these. So what are the key things about our service and services that hopefully embodied in there? So the name being used, and it seems that we're likely to stick with it, is Bloom. We've struggled for a long time with, it was mentioned briefly earlier, talking about our Moodle service. Our service isn't Moodle. Moodle is a thing, a piece of software that a group in Australia create. So our service is something different, and by trying to focus it around a name and names for certain aspects of it, it hopefully becomes more recognisable and more of a useful entity that we can discuss. So you'll hear the term Bloom, and the first thing is to describe what Bloom is, and it's three things. The first of which is it's a piece of software, in the same way that Moodle is a piece of software, Mahara is a piece of software, and various others. So it's simply a lump of code which contains certain features. That's one thing, and we'll discuss that in a bit more detail. The second is it's a service, us hosting that and providing it to you so that you don't have to take on the burden of hosting it and servicing it yourself. So we'll also talk about the Bloom service as well as the Bloom software. And finally, it's also likely to get referred to as the range of services, which we'll come on to talk about and are presented on that first page. So if you hear Bloom, it may be referring to one of those three things, and I think, much as I would love different names and terms, we may as well accept that. So if we think about the Bloom software, what is that? Well, it's Moodle plus the best third-party and community plugins that exist. We've gone some way towards this with this summer's upgrade program. It also includes our range of plugin enhancements. Over the years, we've developed, 30, 40, 50 plus plugins that do various things. So we will add those in. And your plugins. May be less relevant to this group than our HE user group, but I think there's certainly some relevance that you guys know that it's an open source tool. You want to be able to influence that and tweak it to suit your needs, and that can involve developing your own plugins. That combination will become the Bloom software, and it's quite significant when we say that we mean the Bloom software, i.e. there is a version of the product in the same way that there is a version of Moodle, and we would be steering towards where we develop it with our plugins or your plugins or third-party plugins, that we develop the Bloom software for all. And we'll go on, there are mechanisms that we've built in to allow customers to go a particularly unique way, and we can talk about those depending on the level of interest, but that's the core principle, is that we end up with, when we talk about problems in the software in a group like this, we can all be talking about the exact same piece of software underpinning our services, which at the moment I think the Moodle is the common bit, but even there we've got 2.0, 2.2, 2.4. We want to get to a level of commonality. More interestingly, the Bloom service is, first and foremost, a service rather than servers. We don't want to be selling you servers and networks and disk storage and so on. We want to be selling you this application performing to this level, giving you these features with these kind of commitments around support. Again, I'm going to say possibly more so in HE, but I'm not sure that's true. But we almost don't want you to know what's running behind it. Not that we want it to be a secret, but that you don't see that. You know this service is supposed to perform and behave like this, and it's up to us to provide the necessary infrastructure, people, tools, whatever behind the scenes to make it do that. Supported to an extent of your choosing. What that means is, for a long time, and certainly when I arrived, the assumption was that the amount of support required increased as the size of institution increased. And I think in my experience, that is not true, or at least it's not necessarily true. So what we've decided to do is completely divorce support from the size of the service. which then allows you to choose the amount of support that is appropriate to you, your needs, your budget, etc. And to do that, support needs to be bounded in some way, and it would be bounded by time. So less about, yes, we'll do that, but we won't do that, or we'll do that in that situation and not that. Within the constraints of these service level agreements, the general principle is we'll do almost anything you phone us up or email us to do. If you want a copy of your database, we can do that. If you want us to tweak one of your plugins because you can't fix a particular issue in it, if you want some information on how best to use the assessment tools, we can do all of those kind of things. And the boundary, which I think is necessary, will simply be an amount of time, essentially a clock that we choose appropriately with you, a sufficient and generous portion of time, and that's how we manage support, which I think is a new concept for ULCC, but I don't think it's a new one for service provision in the wider world. And again, I'm happy to questions on that.
So if we don't use all our time, do we carry it over? Or do we?
As it stands, the answer is no. But this is where we have to be careful with, or need to discuss with you what is an appropriate amount of time for you. And it will become fairly obvious if we've overblown the amount of support that we've said you need. And then
The other thing for organisations probably that have got less money than others. If you've got more money and you can move budgets from one place to another, that's fine. You just use with the time that you need. But for small organisations that have a very limited amount of budget, it's very difficult for them to budget for the year because they don't know how much support we're going to need.
no, but we can use data and judgment from what has gone before. We can at the very least make a subjective assessment and say that person requires a lot or requires a little, but we've also got some, it's not perfect, but we've got some data in ServiceNow and other tools.
And I suppose there's a difference between support that you need to get things actually running properly
Yes.
and support for things that you may wish to add.
Yeah, absolutely. And these documents or these services distinguish between things we have to do to keep things running, which is irrelevant as far as an allowance of support, and then there are things that you might choose to ask us to do for your own needs, which you then have the flexibility of how do I want to use my time. So again, there's a whole host of detail in and around those which we can dive into if we need to.
That means therefore that the things that you have to do are not included in the time.
Absolutely, and it's defined in there. There are two separate lists of things that these are the kind of things we expect us to have to do, and if they take us 10 days of time over a year, then that's our problem. And here's a list of things that we're essentially saying is your choice to. We'll do them if you ask us to. And able to grow with you, and what we're getting at there is that we quite commonly see people taking up a service and piloting it at a very small level, then rolling out to a department and then institution-wide. And we want our services to support that easily. And the notion of it being based around FTE, again, is a new one for ULCC, but not necessarily a new one for the wider world of service provision, which means that you can start small and grow without having to change the service that you're getting. Based on IT service management best practice, sounds obvious, of course we'd want to do that, but you should be able to see in the definitions of the services themselves that they really do pick up what ITIL is getting at when it talks about incidents, and you'll see it hopefully quite clearly stated that ITIL says an incident is this and this is how it should be handled, and it should be embodied in there. And that's something I believe we will base all our services on is taking ITIL and making sure the service frameworks support us doing that. It's no good saying we're ITIL and having service definitions that just don't even make it possible to do so. Backed by service levels, so not much point having a service level agreement if there aren't statements about the service. You can expect the service to do this, this, this and this. Off the top of my head, ones I can think of that are in there are the obvious ones about availability, also about performance, which is probably one of the hardest to try and find as I mentioned earlier, the concurrent users, but to try and find useful enough measurements of performance that A, can be measured, B, if the measurements are bad, it means you're probably receiving a bad performing service, and if they're good, the flip side. We've had an attempt at trying to find that measurement. There's a separate service in there which takes that to another stage and gives some very sophisticated service levels around performance, but requires tools and processes on our end, so is a choice that you as a customer can make. Incident resolution, request fulfillment, a number of other things, all with stated service levels and service credits to back them up. So that is, again, the principle that we don't see a lot of point writing a service level if there's nothing to back it up if we don't do it. It's better than nothing, states what we're aiming at, but we want to live by those. Plug and play, so again, this will take some time to fully realise, but we want to build tools into our Bloom software product that mean that you can sign up to that service and you have templates, default configuration, themes that you can adjust through the front end, all those kind of capabilities that mean that it is essentially, once you've got it and it's up and running, you can get going. And basing things on an annual cost only is another direction we're trying to take it in, so that the notion of bespoke setup costs to get you up and running should disappear, because it's a standardized, repeatable service that we should be able to deploy quickly, and a year's service or a year of that service costs that much, and life is hopefully a lot simpler. This is probably one of the most important and difficult ones to get to, but we think we've solved the problem. And again, more relevant to HE, but I think is relevant to anyone who uses Moodle, is trying to find, and I describe it as a thin line, and trying to tread it between the flexibility that an open source toolbox like Moodle gives learning technologists, in that we could add that to make it do this, we could change that to make it do that, and we could do all kinds of powerful things. And on the other side, you have people running IT services, both in your institutions, subcontracting to us, who want some assurances. They want guarantees about availability, guarantees about performance, so on and so forth. And there is an inherent tension there. And we think we've found and codified in these documents the line between them, essentially saying all these things are possible, and if we go down that path, here are the burdens that you as a customer take on, here are the burdens that we take on, and the service explains those, and you then can make a conscious decision. Yes, I could add that plugin of my own and go down that path, but here's what I have to consider, and here's what I can expect once I've made that decision. And again, there's lots of detail that we could go into about what is and isn't possible and what are the implications. Composed of distinct and separate services, I've mentioned that already. We've broken what, when I arrived, was described as one service, the Moodle service, down into currently 40. And I wouldn't rule out that being broken down even further in future, but that list on the front page, if I went to any of our customers, we could say, okay, what you describe as your Moodle service is actually that one, and that one. customer, it's that one, and that one. Pick and choose. No, the ILP is going to be in the Bloom software product as standard, therefore in the Bloom services standard. Those services include an allowance of support time, chosen by you as to what level you want to go to. So therefore ILP, what's currently described as ILP is wrapped up in that, i.e. for nothing extra, ILP is there if you know what you're doing and want to go ahead with it. If you want more assistance from us in supporting it, you can have a support contract that allows for the time that you and we expect to put into that. If you want us to help you configure it, develop it, then later on I mentioned professional services, i.e. development, assistance with configuration, all sorts of things. So again, you can pick and choose, but by default it's in there and you can go. So a separate ILP service we did consider, but when we thought through it, it doesn't make sense as a service in its own right. Available to all regardless of the size is essentially saying that that entire list of services is available to all. Probably 12 months ago our thinking was more along the lines of, well, if a customer wants to be able to do that, they need to be on that level of service. That's almost the bronze, silver, gold. You had to be a gold customer to be allowed to do that thing or that thing. Again, we've thought through that, and our conclusion is actually that doesn't really work, because we have small customers who want to be able to do some of what might be seen as the more esoteric, elaborate things. And on the flip side, we have some huge higher education institutions who pretty much straight down the line, very simple, very vanilla. So the only thing that changes with size is the amount of hardware and people that we have behind the scenes keeping it running, which will influence the price, but that's the only real distinction. Yep, enterprise level assurances, out of hours, DR, sophisticated performance monitoring, all those kind of things are there and available should you choose to go for them. And again, not all of our customer base either want to or are prepared to spend on those kind of things. They'd rather prioritise than others. So again, the choice is yours, but the range of services includes those kind of things. Again, mentioned this probably on an earlier point, but it does allow for extensive customization if you so desire. You can take our service and tailor it to suit you in particular, put things in there that you don't want others to have, but it comes with responsibilities and an impact which hopefully is explained and detailed. So again, we want the possibilities to be in there while still having the benefits of standardization and all those other things.
So these, what you're talking about is there is things that we might decide to do which may be at our own risk, or
that's probably a good summary of the
change the relationship in terms of the SLA.
Yes, and what we're not saying that if you were to go down that path, we're saying if that aspect of the thing, say it's a plugin that you said we want to have this plugin, and we've said we're not prepared to put that in the Bloom software because X, Y, and Z. If you buy into there's a service that we've named Tailored, which is essentially allowing you to make your own decision and say, we want to put that plugin anyway. And as you say, the at your own risk element is simply saying, well, if that difference between our source code and the source code you now have is the cause of the site goes down, we don't meet our availability service level, then the burden is on you to either revert, fix it, ask us to fix it, cost. But we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater in that we still have responsibilities for everything that is our hardware, our people, our software. We still have responsibility for. So it's again, trying to carefully define that line, and we hope and think we've done so. But finally, the Broom Range services does include things like Mahara, Equella, the media streaming services and so on. So building up that into a full learning platform. Professional services I've also mentioned, in that development is something we've obviously done a fair bit of over time, but the range of professional services ought to include training, advice, consultancy, both at the technical and the learning and teaching kind of level, and anything like that that has a finite period of time. We want you to do this for us. We want to get more professional at setting those up, so statements of work and agreeing with you what it is we're going to do. So not really covered in this pack of these documents, but the assumption is that being able to ask us to do certain pieces of work as well as run ongoing services should be in there. And again, this is our aim, and there's a lot of work to do to achieve it, but we want to be able to run these services from September. And the advantage to us is that these give us clarity where there currently is insufficient clarity, and getting these services agreed and in place is a priority. My colleague John would have been able to talk more about the plan and the rollout and so on. He's sick today, but if you're interested, concerned, worried about any of that, then do make contact with us.
So, just coming to this reasonably fresh set of eyes.
Yeah.
There'll presumably be a mapping sort of process done. So for our renewal, with our renewal date is August 31st, or July 31st. And then there'll be a mapping process done to our current service, and we'll receive essentially sort of a matrix of the new Bloom service, specifying what we currently have, and then we'll be able to go
as close as possible, because the difficult bit is this is intending to put clarity where there currently isn't always clarity. So the mapping, at some point, is going to be subjective to say, well, we think what you have fits there and there.
We'll need to review it. Just out of interest, we had an increase in cost last year. I'm expecting, I've put to my people who've heard of my purse strings, a projected increase in e-learning hosting costs for this year, which I hope is sort of in line with it. If you did that mapping process for everybody around the table, what sort of level of price increase are we looking at this year?
I think the answer is we don't know yet. Okay. Our priority is to get all of our services built on these ahead of, if we did decide we need to readjust pricing. That's a secondary concern and not the one we're focusing on at the moment. Just because if we do this, it's the foundation on which everything else makes sense.
I agree. I think that's the right thing to be focusing on. Just so you know, my manager has been critical in previous years in that he's asking me for what the cost will be. And it's always been a very protracted process to get a final figure out of ULCC.
Okay.
So just so you know, it's not something that a lot of the people, and I'm sure feel the same way. They're focusing on getting a good service, but with financial service, the need for a firm figure of this is exactly what it's going to cost is really important.
And with these services, there will be a standard price list to go along with it.
That'll be helpful moving forward.
What we have to do in individual cases to map people from current to that is a whole different thing, but the vision is that we have that public catalogue of services, and certainly if I had my way, a public price list. This is the cost for 12 months of this service and that service.
It's great. I really appreciate it. I think the concern in the back of my mind is that I get to a point where I sit down once I get this and have to have a difficult conversation where I say, actually, something we really need or I really want is push the price beyond, where I thought we'd be this year, and I have to have that conversation internally. So,
yeah, and we've got to embark on a program of talking to customers to find out how they and we think they map onto this, how much of stuff which maybe they don't currently have they actually would like, and what that might look in terms of cost. And we are conscious that the mapping may not be as neat and tidy as we hope it would be, but John and the commercial side of the business will be engaging in that discussion, because it also means we need to make sure that we get both the features of each service in the right place. So maybe things like ILP, at one stage we did have it in the list as a separate service, and we actually say, no, it fits better in the service as standard as just a feature. Things can potentially move around to make sure we've got the right granularity of services such that they can be priced at sensible levels. If the features that you all want are in a service that, because it involves so many other things, is actually a very expensive service and nobody can afford it, we've kind of got something wrong and we need to have a rethink.
So looking at aiming for the academic start the next academic year, what are the timescales for starting those conversations?
Yeah.
So when will I be having that conversation?
Yeah, we're currently hiring business relationship management personnel. Not purely for that, but that's obviously would be a key aspect of what they're doing. So the topic at the previous one about account management and so on.
Yeah.
Again, trying to use the ITIL term business relationship management rather than account management, which is a term that sort of misleads people into various different dead ends. So that process of hiring is starting, and soon, as I say, that's the aim. How successful will be? We may have to. It may not be for all 40 services because they are prioritised. The Bloom service actually covers probably more than half of our customer base. That one service on its own, because it gives them Moodle, all the tools they're used to, access to Emily and the support function, and that's it. So that's the probably more realistic plan, is that it's the most services that cover the widest bunch.
Mahara's part Bloom? No.
It's part of the Bloom range of services, and this is
right, okay.
when I talked about being three things. So we're proposing branding the Mahara service as Mahara Bloom, in that it's Mahara, but it's linked to Bloom. So the authentication and other links between them, that is the service we're providing. We're not just hosting Mahara, we're hosting Mahara to go alongside.
So when you just said that the Bloom covers most of your customers, most have Mahara?
I couldn't tell you.
No? Okay. So.
No, I mean, and if they did, if almost all of our customers did, then there'd be a logical case for building it in, and that's what we're trying to do with this separation and merging of services.
We can see it's good. We haven't extensively used Mahara. It's not proved to be. We've tried and pushed, and it's being used, but it's probably not worth the effort right now. So it might be something that we decide to drop, and it would then we could be looking at a reduced cost for next year.
Yeah. Is there any feedback or questions or anything that sounds strange or unclear?
John, the question that you had earlier, what was it about the banding?
Yeah, it was just about bandings, but I mean, I think your explanation of it sounds really good. It's just there's 4 bandings on the top. 5,000 FTEs, 7,500 active next banding is 15,000 to 20,000. Just thinking if you fit between the bandings or just over a banding, don't know what the impact would be, but generally I find sometimes bandings are very, they're not very good for one,
No, agreed.
one person and great for another. So if you've got 21,000 users or active user limit, then you're moving on to Tavistock, you're doing, or you've got 29,000 users, you're still on Tavistock, you're doing well. If you've got 7,550 users, then you jumping up a big massive one.
So I
Can you
guess
stop, it's users, not FTEs.
Well, it is active users, active user limits.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering. I mean, it's just if you've got 7,500 active users and you go up, say, you do well and you push your Moodle and you get up to 8,000 active users, you're then going into the higher band, and you've still got a long way to go to the.
Yes. So it's a number of things I'd say. I mean, with any kind of banding, there's always going to be the person who's won that side and won that side.
Yeah.
We can't avoid that. There was quite a lot of analysis done to come up with those numbers. It wasn't me who did it, so I can't actually remember there was analysis of institution sizes and so on and so forth. I think we'd certainly be open to feedback if we've majorly got that wrong and there's an institution who's going to be sitting in a band that appears odd to be sat in. The possibility of more bands might be an option. It's the kind of thing I think we're open to feedback on. But as yet, obviously, nobody has seen pricing for the bands, so it's hard to know.
Well, yeah, so that's the other thing. It's hard to see where it's going to meet here, but so that's all I'm thinking is we've been in bands before, and sometimes it can be very off-putting, and that's why we haven't chosen certain.
The other thing is, being a relatively small operation, we have the ability to use discretion.
Yeah.
So we want to get to the point. There's a fine balance between using discretion, which you could probably argue we've done up until now, and we've ended up in a state where everything is wildly different and nobody quite knows what the service is and what are the limits on you, all those kind of things. But going the other way doesn't rule out those kind of things.
So are you thinking that you're looking at this and going, I'm at the top of the road when you're at the top of?
Well, it's interesting because we've also got a number of elements we're considering. So basically, if we were to use other systems, say for instance, and then our active user base went down a bit. So it's all kinds of different things. It's for funding. We usually go through business planning at the moment. I'm usually going through business planning. So that's where we're trying to put all the plans together and say what it is we want. So it's just interesting to know. I know there's some services we've had in the past where the banding's very strict, and you think, and it's just been a real pain.
I understand you're probably not wanting to release figures against these until you know exactly what they are, I presume. But it would be really useful to, even if they come with large caveats, to have some kind of indicative costs as soon as possible, really, just to give us some kind of ballpark. I mean, by all means say subject to change and may vary wildly, but some kind of indicative.
One thing that would accelerate that, I think, would be feedback on whether you as a group think the services in there look like the right services. Because obviously the pricing is based on what does it take to provide that service. The service includes 2 days of support time a year. It's different to if the feedback is actually it should be 4, and there's a whole host of.
To speed that along from my perspective, I would want something back from the ULCC to say this is where I think you are. It's much easier to do that than it is to go through this and try and understand for ourselves, because we've not had to look at it from that perspective before. Go, well, so presumably you could do that, couldn't you? You could say, you could do the mapping process and then throw it at us and say, we think you're, Tavistock with all these things ticked.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate. My colleague John, who is leading on that customer engagement side of things, isn't here. But if we take that back and see if we can get something via Frank to say what the program is going to be for those
And-
conversations.
The turnaround for that would be pretty quick.
Bit of clarification. So, say my organisation might be, I don't know, 17,000 students,
Mhm.
whatever. But say the skills people, they use Smart Assess, and I'm going to push it that way. So that's 4,000, say 5,000. So that needs to be with, how many do you say? 13,000 students. Say 10,000 students. Yeah. Are you basing in the system? Are you basing that on those 10,000, or once a student clicks in and it becomes an active user, that?
Good question. The reason we picked FTE at the institution was that it was fairly.
But FT is even much lower.
Yeah.
So.
But
because you
the
don't.
reason is it's a fairly public, unequivocal number
Yeah.
that we can see, you can see. Now
we buy lots of other things on that basis and license lots of things. I think the question.
No, some organisations that base it on your student numbers.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
Not
active.
FT.
And a lot of.
So-
I mean, Smart Assessor is priced per student, isn't it?
Yeah.
The thing I think is a really important question because we currently import a lot of users to our Moodle, which are work-based, which don't ever log in, but we have them there for very valid reasons. So, and our FTE is at a particular level. So the danger with the FE, you might end up with a correlation between FTE and active users. So
there may certainly be room for debating what the limit. The reason for having an active user limit was essentially FTE gives us an idea of what infrastructure and so on we should need to provide that level of service. The active user limit, I guess, is protecting us against, it's actually those users that you have registered in the system that if they all did start using the system would be the ones draining the system of resources. So it's really sort of putting an upper limit in there which at least allows us to have a conversation with you and say, okay, you are an institution of this size, but do you realise you've got 200,000 users in your Moodle for some reason? And the answer is almost certainly likely to be, well, yeah, but that group are not going to use it, but they could. And it's that we have the assurance that we're providing to you, which is the service will perform and all these kind of things. So it's just trying to draw those lines, and again, sensibly with discretion and all the rest of it. But if we said price is based on FTE and you can have as many users as you like in there, it sort of makes a bit of a mockery of the whole banding concept. So the numbers, I think, are certainly up for debate, and we need to do further analysis of. Those were based on actually what we saw in our real life Moodles to date. But I think as we go through those more detailed conversations with individual customers, I think these things will get raised if there are big discrepancies.
I think for us, with the definition of active user in a way, if you do it over the whole year, we could potentially get those numbers. But because we're all part-time, very short courses, per week, per term, whatever, could be quite low. So it does depend on over what period you're talking about. You know, not quite simultaneous users, but you know what I mean.
You're going to be reporting that back to us, aren't you, in your service reporting?
I think it's in
reporting observed active users. So presumably, once that's in place, that's where the figures are going to come from. So what you report back to us.
Yeah, and it's just having that. As you say, it needs a definition, and top of my head, I can't remember what the definition of active user is, but certainly needs one. And it just gives that information when if, for instance, we put in a situation where the service isn't performing the way you or we think it should be, we've certainly got information to actually say, okay, it wasn't performing then, here's what was actually going on in terms of users and so on. Maybe actually you are a bigger service than maybe you thought you were, and then we can decide what we do about it. So it's just trying to pin some things down so that we can make informed, sensible decisions about what we do. It's certainly not intended to make life difficult for you guys or take away services that we're providing.
You can see it's necessary in, trying to do things in a clearer way. So it's long term going to be good. This year, I assume the sort of transition is going to be the difficult bit.
I think it's just a case where FE again is completely different from the school sector and HE, because you don't have people who start at one point of the year and finish at another. You've got people continue. It depends on the institution, but some institutions, like you, have people coming and going all the time. So I'm glad to hear that you're building in some consideration and flexibility and individuality, because that could cause a problem, really.
If you think about the reason for having boundaries on users, it's really to manage performance. So we need to work with you and work out what is the biggest it's likely to get. Even if that's only for a month of the year, that's what the service needs to be sized to support, because we have those commitments to you year round that it will perform and it will be available.
On your graphs, and you have sort of active users per month or whatever, I suppose it's, what's your peak in the previous year?
Yeah, I mean, that's...
As opposed to the total for the whole year?
Yes. Yes, I mean, what should be written for the active users, whether it is or not, I will go and check, but is essentially the biggest that you're expecting to get, even if that does change over the year, not a total for the year, because it's about sizing. Really, those bands tell us how many and what type of servers we put the software on. That's really what it boils down to. And it's those figures that help us decide, should you have 8 CPUs or 32 CPUs or whatever it might be. So I don't anticipate a trap for us all to fall into there. And we have, as you say, pre-existing data, and the FTE gives us a guide for new customers where we don't have pre-existing data. It gets us into the right ballpark to start with.
Because we have inherited the whole program, and we now have, I don't know how many learners that from from almost the entire history, which we are now trying to get rid of. So, I mean, it's a completely unrealistic picture of what is, and so we're trying to do that, and we have been doing it, but it takes,
yeah, absolutely, and we recognise that transition is going to take time, and we will be able to A, help with transition, and B, be reasonable and generous about transition. But where an institution does have users since the beginning of the service, we end up signing contracts to say that we will always provide this level of service. And we can't say hand on heart that we don't know that all of these users could start using the system. You have them in there, they could. And you get into the realms of, risk and warranty, all those kind of things. But that's really what we're just trying to give ourselves an avenue whereby we can say, we don't know how many users are likely to be using the system if we don't have some boundary. Therefore, we can't predict what hardware we should provide, which means we might not be providing enough, and you'll receive a poor service.
I think what I'm really trying to say is that we need about a month or so to do you know what I mean? We just need the time to sort them out.
I think every customer is going to need a period of transition, because we haven't had tightly defined services for so long. We accept that people who've got access to bits and pieces of service that somehow need to be fitted into here or replaced with something more sensible. Practices will have built up based on nothing saying it shouldn't have, and change. So absolutely, transition is not insignificant.
It's going to throw up a lot of questions over the next few weeks.
I hope so.
Where are they all going to go, and who's going to answer them, and how are they going to respond?
Good question. Well, there's a number of ways. The e-learning blog, which has been resurrected with a bit of new life, is up and running. Frank, I think, put out a couple of posts on Bloom, what we're doing and why, similar kind of topics to today. Actually had very little feedback and comment there, even though there's a means to start conversation thread. For the ability that that's public would probably be my preferred route, but equally I'm happy to receive emails and share the answers.
Like once we're talking about getting a position mapped against where we are, we will have a lot of personalised questions.
Oh, I see. That will be a conversation with John and the business relationship team. Those detailed conversations about you in particular.
Where's the blog? How do we know where the blog is?
Okay.
Is it on the portal?
No, I thought something had gone out to everybody, but el.blogs.ulcc.edu.
But that's not helpful, actually, because I could write it down, but the paper's gone. Is there no, we need
It's
some
linked
type
on the
of...
website, not the portal.
Which website?
ULCC.ac.uk.
The main ULCC website.
That's, yeah.
Okay.
That's the only
And
ULCC.
there's still the e-learning services page of that, isn't it? Still called e-learning services?
Blog posts are fed actually in news feeds onto the front page.
Are they?
And I believe there's a link.
So if I type in ULCC, I'm going to see it.
Yeah, e-learning blog.
Which has been around for a long time, but did sort of fade away into...
I stopped looking at it.
Yes,
There was
very
little.
Likewise, but it's being regenerated with new enthusiasm.
Just concerned that it's sort of this close to the end of the year, if you haven't got people in post.
Yeah.
I was trying to communicate. I mean, I've just gone through and my budget's signed for next year already.
Well, that becomes our problem to deal with. If we end up missing the boat, then that's our issue. But it's certainly worth communicating this now, because even where we don't have these services signed in place, the principles embodied in them are the ones we're using to navigate where an issue arises in production. And Emily says, what should we do about this? We're using these principles to help us find a pragmatic answer.
Absolutely. I think just a final sort of comment. I think it's really good. I think it shows massive improvement, and it's exactly what I was looking for from the service. I can take this back now and talk to some of the internal managers who maybe have doubts about us hosting the ULCC in the future, and talk about the way the services have developed. Just a sort of little caveat to that is just make sure that the communication is really good on the back of it, because what I'd like to see is a first sort of step from yourselves to say, right, let's get you, the College of West Anglia, on board with that, by really helping you to understand it, understand where you are now, what you might need, what the costs involved are, and I'm sure everybody around the table feels the same way. Now I'm looking around the table and thinking, well, there's quite a few people here, they're all going to want that from you. Where do I fit in? And am I going to be struggling for Emily's time or your time or somebody else's time to make that happen? So I think, as has been the case with the ULCC a few times in the past, I hope you've got the resource to really fulfil it, because it's, we need to know, and we need to know where we are by our renewal date. So, but yeah, it's really good. No, really positive.
Fair enough. Understood.
Any more questions? What have we got next?
I think we're open to general questions or anything anymore.
Before I forget, thanks for the early ledge, so please make sure we fill these out. I think if Noah's there, you can just hand them to Noah for room there.
Any general questions, comments? Can we have this electronically as well?
Yeah.
Yes. If you can navigate your way to the blog section, there's at least 2 posts introducing this with links to, I think, those and more. But equally, we can ask Frank on the.
If you can,
there is a juice mail for this group.
Or send us the link again.
Send us the link to the blog along with a link to the customer service book, which I think you said in there earlier.
And this is version 1.0, so presumably it's going to be a working document. So I think bulletins, if this changes, or is this going to stay at 1.0?
Well, it certainly could change. It's been through 0.1
Yeah.
and so on, so it's pretty much there.
Yeah.
But clearly we are still asking for feedback, so it could change.
Right.
I want to minimise again, I want the document to be able to evolve, but I don't want to be in a year's time sat around this room and you're on version 1.0 to the document, you're on version 1.6, you're on version 1.9.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, if there are any,
so there's a...
Yeah, okay. So if there are any changes, I mean, I'd say sort of with the communication, kind of all points bulletin, kind of the blog, email, even a telephone call, just a brief one to say, look, just so you know, the service agreement has changed, it's quite significant, just watch out for these points, that's just useful. It's easy to miss this stuff. We are inundated.
I'm hoping we've got past the point of significant and willing to detail or writing things that are not stated and just need clarification.
Okay. Hope you found this meeting helpful. I certainly have from other boys. What about the next meeting? How often did we agree to have them? Do you remember?
No, I think there's a question on the feedback as to.
Is there?
Yeah.
So we don't need to set up a.
So that's our next was June or July. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.